Pledge of Allegiance. If you can stand, please do so.
One of my favorite quotes ever comes from heavyweight champion Muhammad Ali. When the greatest of all time wasn't busy floating like a butterfly or stinging like a bee, he used his bully pulpit to champion noble and worthy causes. Once, when asked about his deep involvement in social activism and philanthropy, he said simply, "Service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth." And I think that idea of service is especially appropriate as we gather here tonight. We give thanks for the residents who serve on our boards, commissions, and committees. They bring their expertise, their acumen, and countless hours of their personal time to the work of making our city stronger. They choose to serve not because they have to, but because they want to make a positive impact in their hometown. Their service reminds us that a strong community depends not only on institutions, but on people who are willing to step forward and contribute. We give thanks for our city staff, whose work often takes place without fanfare or recognition, but whose dedication to the city of Royal Oak is essential to the quality of life we all enjoy. We're truly fortunate to be served by so many who carry out their responsibilities with professionalism and care, and it's my strong hope that they know that their efforts are appreciated beyond words. We give special thanks for the men and women of our police, fire, and emergency response departments, and all those who stand ready to respond when their neighbors need help. Their commitment asks much of them, and their service often means being there when someone else is having one of the most difficult days of their life. We're grateful for their courage, their professionalism, and their commitment to protecting and caring for others. We also recognize the many people who serve outside the walls of city government, those who volunteer through congregations, charitable organizations, and other benevolent groups. They quietly provide meals, comfort, companionship, assistance, and hope to people in need. Their service may not always be visible, but it is deeply felt, and they are part of what makes this a community that's compassionate and connected. All of these people remind us that service comes in many forms. Sometimes it means sitting on a board or commission. Sometimes it means showing up for work and doing your job with care and integrity. Sometimes it means running toward an emergency when everyone else is running away. And sometimes it simply means seeing a neighbor in need and asking, "How can I help?" May we never take those acts of service for granted. May we have the wisdom to appreciate those who serve, the humility to recognize the contributions of others, and the generosity to give our own time and talents when our community needs us. For in the final analysis, service is not measured by a title or position, but by willingness to give of ourselves for the good of others. In the spirit of Muhammad Ali's words, may we all strive to pay our rent. Not just tonight, but every day, by leaving our community a little stronger, a little kinder, and a little better because we were here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, that brings us to item 4 tonight, which is the approval of agenda. And I understand there may be a couple of additions for tonight, or at least one. Commissioner Hunt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add after public comment the excusal of Commissioner Colo from this evening's meeting.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Bastian. Discussion on this motion. All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. All right, that brings us to item 5, which is public comment. So just a few ground rules before we commence. The City Commission values and relies on the input of our fellow citizens to help make decisions. Now's the time that's been set aside for the public to address the City Commission on any city-related issue, whether or not it's on the agenda. I ask that comments be directed to the Commission as a whole and not to individual commissioners. The city has made it easier for you to request a follow-up on any issue or leave public comment by simply scanning the QR code you see displayed. We have one right there in front of our police chief. And please make sure to double check your information for accuracy because our staff wants to get back to you. So if your email address is off or whatever, you may think we ghosted you. That's not the case. It's that we have a bad address. And if you feel uncomfortable using the QR code, we still have our amazing community engagement specialist back there, Judy Davids. She's excellent at taking your information and finding the right department head, city manager, whoever it may be, to get your question answered. If you wish to speak tonight at public comment, please wait until recognized by me, the mayor, then step forward to the podium. For the record, we ask that you state your name and address. Please be mindful, we want to hear from anyone who wishes to speak tonight, so comments are limited to 3 minutes per person and not per topic. And we do have a timer there to help you keep track of your time. Please note that typically we don't respond to questions during public comment. It's your time, and as you can imagine, a back and forth might get real crazy and, just eat up other people's time in terms of when they want to come to public comment, so we don't engage. However, we are taking notes, and when that topic comes up, we'll ask those questions on your behalf. And again, if your questions aren't related to anything on tonight's agenda, we'll make sure those questions can get answered. And I look over and I peek at the notes here. They're not just all doodles from our city manager. He does write down the questions and department heads. But it's important that, if you don't leave your contact information, that at least you follow up with Ms. Davids or Scan so we can find the person to get you your answers you're looking for. Unless it's just rhetorical questions and venting. And we're okay with that too, because we share often the same frustrations and we want to hear them from you as well. So, with that, who's first? Yes, ma'am.
So my name is Karen Burke, and I've got two other ladies with me, and we are all part of the Royal Oak Lions Club, and I'm actually the president of the Royal Oak Lions Club. And we first wanted to say thank you so much for thinking of the Lions Club Park. As I understand, it's going to be renovated with new playground equipment that will be inclusive to children with all sorts of different abilities, whether they're in wheelchairs or use walkers or canes. And we would like to say thank you, and we hope that this can be accomplished, because I know, even though as a blind person I can pretty much do anything and everything, but it's also nice to include others with other disabilities or differences, if you will. And again, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Really appreciate your service on the Lions Club, and thank you for being here tonight. Yes, sir.
Sean Dunlop, 2815 Benjamin. Good evening, I'm Sean, Chair of the Historic District Commission and member of the Vincetta Bridges Task Force. I've asked other members to join me tonight to speak during public comment. Thank you all for considering the recommendation to fund the SME engineering assessment of the 4 historic Vincetta bridges. I want to briefly explain how we got here. The HDSC, which is the Historic District Study Committee, spent considerable time researching these bridges and preparing them for historic designation. In 2024, this commission approved that designation, and the HDC and the HDSC then jointly created the Vincetta Bridges Task Force to determine what preservation should look like moving forward. For more than 2 years, we've researched, debated, and explored funding opportunities. We identified the SME assessment as the logical first step, because before we can talk seriously about repairs, grants, fundraising, or long-term preservation, we need to understand exactly what we have. Over the time we have worked on this, the bridges have continued to deteriorate. So now is the time to take that first step. There's also something fitting about engineering being central to this next chapter. The bridges were designed over a century ago by Mason L. Brown, one of Michigan's leading civil engineers and landscape architects. Today, we're fortunate. We have Holly, an award-winning city engineer who can help us guide to what comes next. The work we all do now will someday become another chapter in the history of these bridges. We know preservation will take time, creativity, fundraising, grants. And I'm meeting with SHPO, that's the State Historic Preservation Office, on Wednesday to begin exploring some of those future opportunities. But tonight, we're simply asking the city to take the first step. These bridges have carried our community for more than a century. It's now our turn to carry them forward. And for the residents who would wish to learn more about the bridges and their history, please visit vincetabridges.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunlap. All right, who's next? Yes, sir, in the black shirt.
Hello, my name is Russ Pattinson. I live at 2321 Ardmore, and I'll be talking about the designation of parking signs at Ardmore and Parkdale. The designation as intersection of the roadway under focus where Parkdale meets Ardmore is in violation of Michigan Vehicle Code MCL 25722 that defines an intersection as a meeting of two roadways where traffic may come in conflict. By statutory definition, as well as Royal Oak Public Records, the roadway under focus is designated as a continuous roadway where two dead-end streets meet and traffic paths do not cross. This is regardless of the continuation of Parkdale and Ardmore at a true traffic crossing intersection 1/2 block to the north, or the addition of a right-of-way stop sign on the current roadway. According to Michigan Property and Royal Oak Engineering records, Ardmore Avenue is considered a dead end at the curve. The section of Parkdale Avenue under focus terminates at Ardmore Avenue and is also considered a dead end. Applying Michigan statute to the specific geometry yields the legal conclusion that there is no cross traffic or opposing flow originating from a third or fourth direction, and standard driving rules for a continuous roadway are applied in that no turn indicator is necessary, no right-of-way concerns are present unless applied, and normal speed and care is expected for any residential street that may narrow as a result of the parking. Now, this engages the Federal Manual on Uniform Traffic Control, the MUTCD, which dictates the national standards for the design, installation, use, and maintenance of all traffic control devices, and applies to all public roads, highways, bikeways, private roads open to public traffic. Placing an intersection-specific signs on a continuous roadway is a direct violation of federal and state traffic control standards as outlined in the MUTCD, which states that placing or misusing signage in non-standard ways confuses drivers, degrades public safety, and exposes the city to legal injunction and suit. The applicable MUTCD rules are Section 1A04, Part 2, traffic control devices should be placed and operated in a uniform and consistent manner. Section 1A10, interpretations, experimentations, and changes. Part 1, design, application, and placement of traffic control devices other than those adopted in this manual shall be prohibited unless the provisions of this section are followed, and it goes on to explain 9 pages of a federal guideline that you have to do if you want to change the designation of this intersection. Any proposal to resolve our issue should address not only the blind curve danger and service access, but also consider the long history of street use that residents of an unusual easement geometry have enjoyed peacefully without incident for generations. If parking is restricted on the inside curve only, traffic coming either way would maintain line of sight. Didn't quite get to the end.
You can finish your last statement.
Okay. Either would remain the line of sight. Service vehicles would have 2 open lanes for their growing needs in our community. Residents would enjoy their right of legal parking on the outside of the curve, all with controls that would not violate the MUTCD.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Patterson.
Did anybody want a copy of that? Because there's a lot of legal
If you want to
in
leave a
there.
copy with our clerk,
Yeah.
she can send it down this way or provide it to us. Thank you. All right. Yes, ma'am, here.
Lisa Friedman, 617 South Vermont. Good evening, Mayor and members of the Commission. I'm here tonight to speak about a serious invasive species issue that occurred at the abandoned property adjacent to my home, and about what I believe was a preventable failure in communication and response by the city. Earlier this year, Japanese knotweed appeared in the yard of the vacant house next door. This plant had never been present there prior to this past spring. After a privacy fence was installed by the owner at the time, apparently dormant rhizomes were disturbed, and the plant began growing aggressively throughout the property and spreading toward my yard. For those unfamiliar with it, Japanese knotweed is one of the most destructive invasive plants in North America at this time. It spreads through underground rhizome systems, and even small plant fragments, if they hit the ground, can create new infestations. Improper cutting, mowing, or weed whacking can significantly worsen the problem by spreading the fragments to new areas. As soon as I identified the plant, I repeatedly called the city. I talked to Jason Craig many times. Well, he avoided me many times, but I sent him many emails regarding this particular weed because I was praying that nobody would go there and cut it down and spread it to the adjacent properties. Last Tuesday evening, 2 city trucks showed up. I talked them out of doing it until the next day when I could talk to Mr. Craig. And on Thursday, also Mr. Dave from Forestry, I don't remember his last name, he came and he spoke to me about it. And I explained everything, and he listened, he gave me his card, and I felt like maybe somebody was going to respond finally in a way that would be less destructive than weed whipping everything down. But he called me on Friday, told me they were going to do it on Wednesday. And at that point, I told him, Dave from Forestry, that I was going to go cut it myself to avoid them weed whipping it and, having the fragments go everywhere and compromise taxpayers' property and so on. So he encouraged me to do so. So along with a friend, we went and we carefully cut down over 100 stalks of Japanese knotweed from that backyard and placed all of the tops of the stalks in a clearing in the backyard to avoid spreading the fragments. They did come on Saturday, the next day, and they did cut down what was left in the backyard. Oh crap. I sincerely hope I'm wrong about what happens and the infestation doesn't spread any further. I'm not here to complain. I'm asking the city to learn from the experience. I respectfully request that Royal Oak develop a formal protocol for identifying and responding and regulating invasive species before routine mowing and cutting, so that in the future things like this won't happen and we won't have compromised people's private property. I'm sorry, I just have to get this last thing. Is that okay? Out.
One sentence, you can finish one more sentence.
Thank you. I also request that, finally I ask that the city review how this situation was handled and determine whether opportunities may have been missed to prevent the potential spread of this known incredibly invasive species. Also, I have, I brought some information with me for anybody that's interested in knowing what it looks like.
Yeah, if you want to leave a copy with our city clerk, it's not a bad idea to look into.
I have.
Thank you, Ms. Friedman. Yep, she'll pass it down to us.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor. Bill Harrison, Woodward Side Subdivision, Royal Oak. At the last commission meeting, I stated that Orwell's 1984 addresses the surveillance camera issue. We are subsequently hearing about abuses of the flock camera systems in other states. I also stated that Orwell's Animal Farm pertains to this commission. The 3-minute time limit did not allow me to explain why. When you obtained power, your words, not mine, the first thing that you did was reduce public speaking time from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. In the book, when wise old Major died and the other pigs took over the farm, they proceeded to change the original commandments to justify their growing corruption, human-like habits, and absolute control. The no animal shall drink alcohol was changed to no animal shall drink alcohol to excess. Similarly, you now allow marijuana sales and smoking at Arts, Beats, and Eats, supposed family event. The final transformation was when they changed all animals are equal to all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. You provide special land deals for developers, and the forgiveness of tax increment funds for new apartment buildings. Then you propose millages that increase taxes for all other property owners. Most concerning is the changing of the traditional zoning ordinance to the form-based code that emphasizes form over function. The FBC potentially threatens our single-family zoned residential areas. You have not provided an objective explanation of the FBC compared to the traditional zoning ordinance. You did have a gentleman from California supposedly explain the FBC. He was redundant, he rambled, he was not prepared. We still haven't had a decent explanation of the FBC. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. All right, who's next? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Leslie Snow, a resident at 1017 West Webster Road. I am also the Secretary of the Historic District Study Committee. Our committee wrote the report, or did the research and wrote the report for the Vincetta Bridges, which was sort of a long time before I came on the committee. There were people interested in designating those. So our plans didn't really come to fruition until 2022, and we asked the city if we could study those bridges, and we got approval to do so. So what we do is we research the history of a property. Part of the research involves a site visit, taking photographs. In this case, we also did, we looked at a survey, we did a tree inventory, we did do a site visit looking around the bridges and trying to look underneath and around, as well as looking at the history of the bridges. So they're over 100 years old and really reflecting the time period that the neighborhood was built to reflect a park-like, peaceful setting. So very carefully planned and designed for that particular experience that we still get today when we go down Vincetta. And as you're all aware, the City Commission approved the Vincetta Bridges Historic District in 2024. Shortly after that, the HDC and the HDSC determined that maybe a task force of several members from each committee would be helpful to find out what the bridges needed moving forward. In June of 2024, a company, RAW3, actually did some scans and CAD drawings. So those included 3D laser scanning, scan registration setup, and 2D AutoCAD drafting of all 4 bridges. So those gave kind of a picture in time. And as Sean had mentioned before me, that there's been further damage to them. So those kind of just painted a picture of maybe what we thought we would make molds or something to fix part of the things that were broken. But what I'm really here to request on behalf of the city or the residents and our committees is the ability to have the engineering assessment to really find out the deeper issues and how we can move forward thoughtfully so that we can be good stewards of these historic properties and, find a path forward for the preservation of them. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Snow. In the far back?
Hi. I'm Chris Kraska, and I live at 1929 Woodsboro, and I'm also on the Historic District Study Committee. And I'm here to talk about the significance of the bridges. I do the fun part. I do the research. Anyway, the dream starts in 1904, and what happens is we have two gentlemen, Arthur Bassett and George Vinton, buy the 155 acres, and they immediately divide it into 3 lots, one for each of them, and one probably is going to be the subdivision, because that's what becomes the subdivision, and they build 2 summer homes. Unfortunately, both of them die young, and their sons have to carry on that legacy. And so what happens is they hire that Mason Brown, and you heard them mention Mason Brown before, and he lays out the subdivisions. And you don't know his name, but you'll actually know him when I mentioned that he designed the Roseland Cemetery and the Oakview Cemetery. He actually laid it out. So what they want to do is they want to take that garden design, they want to break up the grid, and they want to create parks for us. So they do that, and they hire him to do that in Vincetta. So that's what they do, and they want to take advantage of that river, or the run. And so the run goes on the middle, they have the bridges, and then all the streets come off of it like a branch. And he does a pretty good job because he's creating this park-like setting for us and those bridges. And so the bridges, we don't have a building permit that says, hey, it's done in 1910 or whatever, but we do have a quote from the Daily Tribune. And it's an unfortunate story because a man dies. And it says, death of a 42-year-old laborer, John Buffo, was instantly killed by a southbound freight train at the intersection of Vincetta and Grand Trunk. And at the time, the railroad went from downtown that went along Woodward up to Pontiac, and it's later moved. But he is not paying attention. He gets off the train, and the other train comes, and unfortunately, he's killed right away. But in that article, it mentions that he actually worked for a company who was constructing bridges in the Royal Oak subdivision. So we actually know when it happens. Between 1914, probably 1916. And why that's significant is because at the time, the Model T was the most popular car. And so the bridge is actually sized on the Model T. And so are a number of other roads at the same time. But what's significant is these bridges are the last of their kind. Good and bad. We have to take down the other bridges because they don't fit modern cars or modern roadways, so they're torn down. But these bridges are the last of their kind. There are none left in Michigan that we know of, maybe one in Florida that we found, but other than that, they're the last. And that's why they're significant, not only to Michigan, but also Royal Oak. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Ridley. I am a resident at 134 Lakeside Drive. I'm also a member of the Historic District Study Committee and the Vincetta Bridge Task Force. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Kevin Yee and Holly Donahue for the time and effort they've invested in this project. I appreciate the work that they've done to bring this recommendation forward, and I support the recommendation to authorize funding for the Vincetta Bridges assessment. I'd also like to take a minute to explain why I believe this assessment is such an important next step. We all recognize there are concerns about the condition of the 4 bridges. Before the city can make responsible decisions about the repairs, rehabilitation, costs, or long-term planning, we first need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. Right now, much of what we know is based on visual observations. The assessment gives us something more concrete, no pun intended. It provides the engineering data needed to understand the actual condition of each bridge and identify the true issues and the priorities. I also think it's important to emphasize that approving this assessment does not commit the city to a specific repair plan or larger expenditure. It simply gives us the information needed to make the informed decisions. Without that information, we run the risk of spending money addressing what appears to be a problem without fully understanding the underlying condition. That could ultimately cost the city more while leaving important issues unresolved. To me, this is about doing things in the right order, assessing the bridges, understanding their condition, establishing priorities, and then make informed decisions about what comes next. For those reasons, I believe authorizing funding for the Vincetta Bridges assessment is a responsible and necessary first step. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Charlene Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Charlene Douglas. I live at 101 Curry Avenue, and I have three things to briefly mention. First, I want to thank the voters of Royal Oak for approving the public safety millage and the solid waste millage. Commissioner Bastian very capably described the quality of our public safety officers and teams and their value to our community. Secondly, I see that your agenda includes approving the transfer of ownership of Lily's Seafood Restaurant to new owners. And I want to thank the Morton family for literally decades of service to our community. They have welcomed Royal Oak residents. They have welcomed our visitors. They have been generous corporate citizens. I'm confident that the new owners will continue the tradition, and I wish the Mortons all the best as they transfer that heavy responsibility to the new owners. And thirdly, I would like to invite everyone in Royal Oak to Arts, Beats, and Eats on 5th. This is the annual charity preview of the Labor Day Weekend Festival. It benefits the Royal Oak Civic Foundation. It will take place on August 28th from 5:30 to 8:30 on the brand new and soon to be completed 5th Street Mall. Tickets are available at royaloakcivicfoundation.org. It's going to be a great event. We welcome the city commissioners, of course, and all of the residents of Royal Oak. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Douglas. Ms. Wagman.
Janice Wagman. I want to address two agenda items tonight that raise the same issues, transparency and public involvement. First is the quarterly ARPA report. Royal Oak received more than $28 million in ARPA funding. When decisions were being made about how to spend it, the city undertook a significant public process. There was a stakeholder listening session, a mailed community survey, and a public open house. The results were presented and discussed at a commission working session, and the commission ultimately adopted an ARPA allocation plan in February 2023, 3.5 years ago. That was a significant public process for an extraordinary amount of public money. But since then, the public accounting has largely become quarterly spreadsheets placed on the agenda to receive and file without discussion. Tonight's report shows $22.3 million expended or encumbered and nearly $5.8 million remaining. The cover letter says the September 30th quarterly report will reflect the additional changes approved through the budget process. I'm asking that when that report becomes before the commission after September, it be presented publicly, not simply another spreadsheet to receive and file. Give the public a comprehensive accounting that clearly tells residents what was originally promised, what was actually spent, what projects changed or were eliminated, and what are the plans for the remaining funds. After all the effort the city put into gathering public input at the beginning, residents deserve to see how the final results compare with what they asked for and what they were originally told. Transparency shouldn't end with the public engagement when the public engagement ends. My second concern is the new strategic plan. According to tonight's agenda, input from the mayor, commissioners, and executive leadership team will help shape an October work session to develop priorities and draft a strategic plan. What I don't see in that process is the public. This plan will guide city decision-making and resource allocation for many years. Residents should have an opportunity to provide input before those priorities are finalized. I'm also asking that the October work sessions be recorded and the materials made available to the public, whether they're held here or off-site. Let's not repeat the lack of transparency that occurred during the 3 lengthy budget workshops. The final strategic plan will tell us what you decided. Transparency means we should also be able to understand how and why you decided it. And if this plan is going to guide decisions that affect this community for years to come, the community should have a voice in developing it. not just 3 minutes of public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, yes.
Good evening. I'm Teresa Sherwitz. I'm at 3004 Woodland Avenue. I am a volunteer on the Royal Oak Historic District Commission, a licensed architect, and I work on restoration of historic buildings. I support SME's assessment of the Vincetta bridges. The testing will provide information about the strength of the concrete, chemical properties, and the extent of deterioration. In discussing the bridges with a former head of the State Historic Preservation Office, he advised against a patch and coat approach, noting some previous restoration project failures. And instead, this approach will, SME's assessment will include recommendations for repairs based on testing, which will ensure compatibility of the repairs with the historic structures. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. Anybody else? Yes, in the back.
Good evening. I'm Susan Miller-Smilnack, and I didn't intend to speak tonight. I live at 1620 Vincetta, and I'm here because of the bridges. And everybody on the committee has been speaking, but I want you to know how near and dear those bridges are to us. I've been a resident here since 1955. Can't believe that. And moved to our home and in that section because of those bridges. And I want to see them preserved. So I just want to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, not everybody at once. All right, going once, going twice. All righty, we're going to close public comment and bring the meeting back to this side of the table. Thank you for everyone who participated in public comment tonight. Definitely going to be helpful for some of our discussions that we have moving forward. So this brings us to the first item after public comment, which was added during the approval of the agenda, which is the Commissioner Colo's excused absence. Commissioner Hunt?
Yes. Commissioner Colo reached out. He is out of town, and he has asked that we approve his absence here today. So based on that, I would make a motion to excuse his absence this evening.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hunt. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Bastian. All right, discussion? Just to be clear, this isn't excusing Commissioner Colo. There's no excuse, right? It's just excusing the absence, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, then I can support that. If Commissioner Colo is listening, which I'm sure he is. That was a joke. All right, any other discussion? Oh, Commissioner Cheatham. Oh, Commissioner Cheatham, you sound different.
Okay. Go ahead. You go ahead. I think the only thing I want to say is that all of us really care about the service that we do, and I know that I think Commissioner Herzog and I both recently missed an important meeting because we had other family obligations at that time, and so I respect Commissioner Colo, and I support him in what he's what has taken him away from his meeting here this evening. I have no issue with that, but I also just don't want it to look like other commissioners' absences are less of less value, that either past or future absences. So we all take this service so seriously, and but sometimes nephews get married on the commission day or commission weekend and things like that. So things do come up and we can't be here. So I think that it should be sort of a general allowance for commissioners to miss occasional meetings, which there is.
Commissioner Herzog.
That's what I was going to say.
You guys are messing with my mind tonight. And I think that's a really good point, Commissioner Cheatham. I'll just say, we're all, much to the conflict with some conspiracy theories, we are humans up here that have families and work and things like that need to be attended to, which is great because you get a diverse group of people up here that all have different jobs, different careers, different families, different things going around. And so occasionally we do have to miss a Monday meeting. And I think it's acceptable. And we have provisions in our charter. You miss too many, well, it's an issue. But, one here or there, and I think it's worth saying because, every now and then we have something. I've missed a couple because of work, travel over the years. I've missed a couple because I think it was weird. My daughter was confirmed on a Monday. I kept calling the parish. I'm like, wait a minute, which date is right? Oh, she's getting confirmed on a Monday? Isn't it Saturday? And they're like, you're old. It used to be Saturday. I'm like, oh, okay. So things like that happen. So, all right. I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. That brings us to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull anything off tonight's consent agenda? Commissioner Herzog.
That's me.
It's you.
I'll pick this up. Actually,
Commissioner Herzog.
So I would like to pull D, Michigan Liquor Control Commission Establishment of Harry Hospitality LLC, Plan of Operation.
Okay, anybody else? Commissioner Cheatham?
I'd like to pull M off.
M, that's Social District Approval of Louis Restaurants LLC. M. That's it?
That's it, sorry.
Okay. Down here? Okay, so D and M. All right, does anyone wish to make a motion on the consent agenda, less D and M? Commissioner Cantina? Okay, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Bastian. All right, discussion on the consent agenda. All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. D.
D.
Oh, okay. Chief, D.
Well, good evening. The police department received a request to review a new proposed plan of operation from Harry Hospitality LLC to be located at 410 South Washington Avenue. That license is being purchased from the Mortons, and they will continue doing business as Lily Seafood Grill and Brewery. The applicants are Nellie and Christopher Harry. They'll be the member owners of this business. Mrs. Harry has been actively involved in the restaurant business for the last 23 years, and currently she manages Lily's, where she's been employed since 2005. Mr. Harry has been actively involved in the restaurant business for the last 17 years as well. If approved, Lily Seafood will operate as a full-service restaurant with table service and full-service bar. Their menu and format will remain unchanged from the previous owner. There'll be no structural changes to the existing building, and the seating layout will not change either. And essentially, the restaurant will appear the same to the general public. The applicant is also requesting to continue to use their entertainment permit and will sign and adhere to our permit agreement as well. The police department is not opposed to this request. As always, I'm happy to take any questions, and both the Harrys are here this evening if you'd like to hear from them.
Questions for Chief Moore? All right. I mean, this is, although not a lot is changing, it's still a big deal. Beginning of a new milestone. Not the end of something, but the beginning of something. Do the petitioners want to come up and say anything? You're not obligated to, by the way. You're not being subpoenaed. But it's always a good opportunity to put a good plug in for the 64 people that are watching right now on public access.
Hello. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for your time and consideration. My name is Nellie Harry. This is my husband, Christopher Harry. We are Harry Hospitality. Our plan is to purchase Lily Seafood Grill and Brewery. We are longtime residents of Royal Oak. We have 3 children in the school district. I have been a manager at Lily since 2005. My husband also has worked in the restaurant industry for the majority of his professional career. As well as the professional experience that I have, I also sit on the PTA District Council Board, and I also sit on the Restaurant Association Board. So we are our roots run very deep in this community. We were presented with this opportunity to purchase Lily's by the Morton family, who we love and cherish. And I believe that we have been given this unique opportunity to keep Lily's running as a family-owned, community-focused small business that it currently is. We understand its value as a long-treasured part of Royal Oak, and we plan on keeping its spirit and traditions alive. We just thank you so much for your consideration, and we look forward to being a part of this wonderful community for many years to come.
Wonderful. Questions? Nothing fishy about this transaction, I don't think. Oh, man. All right. Well, I'll just say, I don't know how the votes are going to go here tonight, but you are, potentially taking over something very special in the city of Royal Oak, stewards, so to speak,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Not so much owners, but stewards of
Caretakers.
caretakers
Yes.
of something that's been, a cornerstone in our downtown and in our community that lots of people have shared many, many memories there. Or depending on how much they were served, maybe they forgot some memories there as well. But in fact, I remember, oh man, I feel like Mayor Ellison, if you're listening, I feel like you right now. I remember, was it last year, walking by there just like seconds after a young lady gave birth. Right
I was there that night.
Yeah. I think I saw you there. I was like, what's going on? And
I figure if I can handle a birth, I can pretty much handle most situations at a restaurant.
You were pretty just calm, like, oh, yeah, just the baby, Managing a restaurant, oh yeah, we helped usher in a new life. It's just, day's work. But that was, so many different special things, probably you can think of. That's probably a pretty big one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I won't go down memory lane because I know everyone has lots of stuff to do tonight. So, all right. No questions? All righty. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So, Commissioner Herzog.
Motion to approve?
All right. Second by Commissioner Gantina. Any discussion? Commissioner Herzog.
Thank you. So I pulled this for two reasons. One, Ms. Douglas said it in public comment tonight that the Morton brothers had this restaurant for the past 27 years. And like we just said, there was a baby born there. It's a great place for colleagues and have meetings, even your family, because you can just let kids kind of run around a little bit. It's just a very comfortable family place to be. And so it's a celebration of someone's hard work over the past 27 years in our community, and a real staple in our community. And then I also wanted to uplift the new owners and all of their experience they have in the restaurant business, especially during COVID, which was a very difficult time. And I've always think it's really cool when people are running into the burning building instead of not literally. I mean, there are firefighters.
Shouldn't run through it, not into
but
it.
I mean, people that want to serve during more difficult times when they could probably be doing something else. They're Royal Oak residents. Mrs. Harry was part of the Oakland County PTA, or was the Oakland County PTA president, which was where my kids go to school. So I know that they have a long history of service in our community. And so, and because we all serve our community and we understand the importance of giving back to a community that gives us so much, I just think that this is such a great, I'm just very hopeful and wishing you all the success, and that's why I will be voting yes for this.
Thank you. Commissioner Cheatham.
I just also want to wish you all the best. I thought I would just share a quick story. My husband and I actually got married at the courthouse here in Royal Oak, and right after that we went to Lily's for a little celebration. So, and I have gotten a chance to get to know the Harrys a little bit because our daughters played on the soccer team together, and it is nice to just have community members just serve the community through entertainment and through having a good meal at a familiar place, and now with this opportunity stepping up and taking over, and I'm sure that was a decision that took some conversation to settle on. So I just really thank you for doing that, for taking that leap, and I definitely wish you all the best.
I'll just add that this is a perfect win for the city of Royal Oak. A lot of times when businesses go up for sale, sometimes it's an asset sale, and things are bought, names are changed, everything's different. Sometimes conglomerates or corporations buy out these family businesses, and you can feel that change. That's not a knock against big corporate America, so I'll hold my email box. But to see another family, especially someone that's been part of the experience for so many years, since 2005, take over the business and keep that continuity and have many, this area, I don't want to scare you, but many decades ahead of you, perhaps, through your family and your kids being part of it. I think that's a real success story for our city and the community members that love Lily. So I think this is a really special thing. And wish you the best of luck. Not that you need it. All right. Any other discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. No backing out now. Okay, and that was item M from the consent agenda.
I think that there is a typo in the resolution, so I just wanted to make sure that was straightened out before we approved it, in that it says that it's grants local approval to Pronto Management LLC, but I believe it's supposed to read to Louis Restaurants LLC. So I don't know if it was worth pulling off the consent, but I just want to make sure we had the language right for that.
I mean, that makes sense to me.
That's what's written at the top of the executive summary.
If you look at the insurance certificate, that refers to Pronto Management as well.
Chief Moore, do you have any more light you can shed on the different corporate entities?
Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with this item. This was submitted by the DDA director, so I'm not familiar with this item.
Looking at it globally, considering the insurance contract is for Pronto Management, my feeling on it is that the application should be for Pronto Management, not Louis Restaurants LLC. So I think looking at the paperwork, if anything, it's the application that would be incorrect.
But this references in the certificate, doing business as Sun Holdings. I'm wondering if we have the wrong certificate submitted. Maybe we need to defer.
So that was just going to be a simple word change. So I wasn't trying to delay anything. I think that this will be very exciting for the community, but I just wanted to make sure we got it right in the first round.
I think the question is, what are the impacts of delay, and what are the remedies that we can approve, Mr. Markham, maybe that allow us to, if there are some incidental fixes.
Well, I think it's coming back, Chief. Isn't this coming back for the license review anyway?
Yeah, it sounds like it may be ready in the next meeting or two, some sort of transfer.
So you could tag team the two items at that point?
Correct.
Okay.
Without any harm, from what I can tell.
At least on our side, we don't know if do they need this approved as a provision for that application in 2 weeks?
Yeah, that I don't know. I don't have the answer for that this evening.
Can you approve it subject to? But you're going to approve who it is.
Yeah, we don't know who we're approving.
Yeah, I mean, the kicker is we have to make sure that the name on the operating agreement is correct. And that's really the one that we can't confirm, because that's the only one where Louis Restaurants comes in. Everything else is consistent with Pronto Management and Bar Louis. But Louis Restaurants LLC seems to only be present on the application.
Well, What do you guys think? I mean, what is the, I mean, if we were to approve this tonight, as is, would it, I mean, the reality is that they have a way that they're gonna execute their operation, right?
That's correct.
So if we approve it like this and they come back and say, "Oy, I messed up, I had a typo," we could fix that typo at the next meeting. They could just resubmit with the typo fixed, right? No, I don't say no harm, no foul.
And it could be added to the agenda with a majority vote, any sort of change that they needed at that time.
Okay, but if this is correct and we just don't understand the business context behind it, then it's fine and they don't lose any ground.
That's correct. It'd be no harm, no foul tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to be clear, my intention was not to delay this at all. I thought that there was a simple typo that we could resolve quickly up here. So I'm not trying to delay this in any way.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I think you've pointed out an inconsistency. We don't know if it's a legitimate inconsistency, typo, or is it, you know?
I didn't see the insurance.
So I would move approval. So we're saying, okay, so I would move approval of the resolution. So
Okay.
we're saying that that will work, right?
Yeah,
Legal
because
team?
I think what I'm
Right.
hearing is no harm, no foul. If they
Okay.
submitted something that's inconsistent, and
Okay.
they have to come back and fix it, there's a remedy by the next
Okay.
meeting.
So I'll move approval then.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Teasem. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Herzog. Discussion? All right. With now, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, we'll find out. We'll learn something. From our end, doesn't make a big difference. Okay, sorry, I'm looking at paper and I need to go back to my screen here. That brings us to item 7, which is the July 2026 Traffic Committee resolutions. And I see our city engineer, Ms. Donahue, there, waiting to explain to us what the recommendations were at the last Traffic Committee.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. Tonight I have 5 resolutions for you from the July 28th Traffic Committee meeting. Our first item that we discussed was actually a previously tabled item from March where we were waiting for more members to attend a meeting to have a more robust discussion. But the topic was, should we consider changing our name as the Traffic Committee? Members wanted to ensure that our mission is to look at all roadway safety issues for all users and make sure that we're not giving the impression that we only focus on vehicle traffic, that we really consider all modes and types of traffic. In discussing this, the board members felt pretty comfortable that we are effectively following this mission, and so changing the name of the committee itself maybe wasn't really so necessary, especially considering the effort of changing an ordinance in order to make that change. They did feel that updating the mission statement in our bylaws, which I have posted up on the screen here, was appropriate, and also placing our mission statement or the purpose statement shown here in more visual places on our website so that when people come to ask questions about traffic, it's very clear what our mission is as opposed to trying to find our bylaws somewhere buried online. We've put the proposed edits as discussed by the members here on the screen. The main key phrase that we discussed, and one of our members actually brought to us from her profession as a traffic professional, was the phrase for users of all ages, abilities, and modes. So we want to look at all safety issues, and we want to make sure that we're basically considering anyone that's going to be impacted within our public rights of way. I guess that's a very common phrase in the traffic world. So this is what they're proposing. I know that there's maybe some discussion to be had on that, so I'll leave this for now, and we can certainly go back to it at the end here. And I'll get into our next ones. Okay, then we moved into more of the action items. Our first item, which was 6A on the agenda, is related to Albert Avenue. This is between Coolidge and Woodward. And here residents had requested that the city consider changing the road to be a one-way eastbound only, or to consider other methods to reduce traffic and speeding on the street. And so I kind of showed an image what that might look like, some sort of diverter island past the businesses off of Woodward, where you still have two-way traffic, and then they're requesting one-way only within the more residential part of Albert Avenue. Traffic volume on the street is pretty high. I have the numbers down there at 1,228 vehicles per day, and the 85th percentile speed was measured at 28 miles per hour. Staff's biggest concern with making Albert a one-way road was that it will effectively push more traffic to Merrill, which is the next street to the south. We know that that street has, I think, the highest volume I've measured on a residential street in our city. Last time we measured it, it was 1457 vehicles per day. It used to be 2,000 vehicles per day. We put speed humps in and it reduced it a little bit. But exacerbating that again by pushing more traffic there, it was our big concern. You may recall that we did a pilot study to mimic one-way road closures for all those streets right off of Woodward there. There's 5 of them that we hear, complaints about from time to time. The thought was if we're going to make any of these streets one way, we should make them all one way. Otherwise, same issue. We're pushing traffic to somebody else. We're just moving the problem. So we did that back in 2019 with temporary barricades and signage and found that many people disobeyed the signs and the barricades, drove the wrong way anyways, and a lot of residents were opposed to it because it made it a lot harder for them to get to their homes. So we talked about that in circles for a little while. Eventually, I think the committee came to the point where they said, we really don't think one-way road here is appropriate. And so we pivoted more to the discussion of how can we help with cut-through traffic and how can we help with speeding concerns. While this street does not meet the 30-mile-per-hour criterion that we set for installing speed humps, the committee thought this might be a case where we want to make an exception to our rules because there's such a high traffic volume here. We don't see over 1,000 vehicles per day regularly on our streets. We're normally between 300 and 600 is pretty typical for us. So they had thought maybe we should make that exception, but we didn't really bring that to the table. We don't have an exhibit. We haven't presented this to the residents there yet. And so ultimately their recommendation to you tonight is threefold. They want to install a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit sign at Woodward. It's pretty simple. We also heard from residents that when we moved the parking to the south side of the road on Albert recently, if you may remember, I think from the March meeting, and we prohibited parking near these driveways on the south side of Albert. We heard from residents at this last meeting in July that it's really hard to turn out of there. The cars are parked too close. They can't see if traffic is coming. So at the table, the committee also asked that we relocate some of those parking signs, give a little bit more sight distance for those residents. So we'll probably lose a couple more parking spots on the south side there, but make it safer to leave the driveways. And then the final item is basically asking for the commission's approval to consider the possibility of speed humps on the street. If you were to approve that tonight, then that would direct staff make an exhibit, present it to the boards of these 2 multifamily areas because it's 180 units and getting a petition is pretty unlikely to get that many signatures. And so they're recommending that we present the proposed exhibit to each board, get a letter of support from them if we do get that, bring it back as a new item, consider speed humps, and move forward through our normal process there. So tonight, I know that's like a lot that I just said, but tonight we're really just asking for your blessing to move forward with the speed hump option. And if you say, no, we don't want to break our criterion, then we'll just stop it at this point and just go with those first 2 recommendations. Okay, the rest are a little simpler, I think. Item 6B, this was a request, we heard from one person at public comment on this one. This was a request to sign the 2 offset intersections of Parkdale and Ardmore to make sure that vehicles are not parking within those intersections. The area can become pretty congested, particularly we've heard mostly from residents about this southern bend in the road. So if cars are parking too close or within those intersections, residents noted issues with garbage trucks being able to get around the corner. Also concerns during the winter if there's ice or snow buildup. It feels really unsafe to drive around there if a car is parked right at the corner. I will note there was something at public comment that mentioned technically you would not define Ardmore and Parkdale at the south end here as an intersection. And technically he is right. Even though there's 2 different street names, there is no crossing traffic there. However, we are well within our rights to assign areas for no parking for safety reasons. And in this case, we're a 90-degree turn with 2 cars in opposite directions. You need 24 to 30 feet of space just for that. So you should not have a car parked there if you're trying to make those maneuvers. And so for that reason, I do think these signs, and as recommended here on the screen, are very appropriate. Our next item was at the intersection of 4th and Hendry. This was a request to consider a 4-way stop at the intersection and just look at the overall safety here. This is right off of Woodward. We did check to see if the warrants for a stop sign were met at this intersection. And I have the volumes and the speeds that we measured here on the screen. But in short, a four-way stop here is not warranted for east-west traffic. But we did see a few repeated crash types for people turning off of Hendry and not realizing that traffic on 4th was not going to stop. And so we are recommending the yellow cross traffic does not stop sign right below the stop signs as shown here on the image. And then we're also looking to prohibit parking about 30 feet from the crosswalk here on the northeast corner. And that's to help with sight distance for people sitting southbound on Hendry, trying to look to the east and make sure that traffic is clear. So that just pushes traffic that can park there just a little bit further to the east. I did want to note that we have funding to do a road safety audit of the entire corridor of 4th Street. So we're going to be doing that end of this year or early 2027, and that will continue to inform should we do something else on 4th Street, particularly the segment between Woodward and Hendry, where people want to fly off of Woodward. You hit the bend and they slow down, but at that first segment, I think we can probably do some traffic calming improvements there. So we'll use that study to inform our future design, and then we'll be reconstructing at least this segment in 2032. And then our final item for discussion was related to a very serious crash that occurred. This is at the intersection of Main Street and Farnham. Back in May, a southbound vehicle drove through the red light and struck an eastbound driver, and that caused the collision where a car basically went through the front door of the Genesis Credit Union there. The driver was issued a citation, and Police Department submitted a driver evaluation request form due to concerns that that driver maybe should not be driving. The credit union right now is in the process of repairing their building, and they had asked the city if we would allow them to install bollards in the public right-of-way, and those are kind of illustrated here on the screen. They were asking for 4 bollards outside of the walkable path. There technically is enough space for those bollards to be installed. You can still have 4 feet off the roadway as recommended and a 5-foot walkable path for sidewalk users. But I will note that staff from all of our departments, police, fire, DPS, planning, and engineering, as well as the committee themselves, are unanimously opposed to this request for a few reasons. There have not been similar events occurring along the Main Street corridor that would indicate that this is a pattern, that this is something we expect to see. In other words, this was a very unfortunate but a freak accident. The bollards are unlikely to prevent a crash from occurring if we go with just the standard bollards that you see in most parking lots. If you really wanted them to be crash worthy, we're talking 4-foot diameter, 4-foot deep concrete foundations, which we need that space in our right-of-way for our utilities. So I'm very concerned with giving up that much space for something that potentially is not warranted. There were concerns also mentioned about the city's liability if a car were to hit those bollards and that caused a serious injury or even death. What would the city's liability be in that case because we allowed it in the public right-of-way? So the committee noted that bollards could perhaps be installed on the private property side. You see a sidewalk flag here in front of their main doors. We also brought that up during our staff review, and the requester had noted that it would be very difficult for them to do that based on the frost slab that they have installed at that location. But I did notice after we had the traffic committee meeting and the requesters were there, the following week in August, we saw an application in the building department to put bollards right in that space. So maybe they reevaluated it, did not think it was likely this would get approved, and it appears that they are moving forward with bollards on private property, and I just put a little snippet of that here. So this may kind of be a dead issue anyways, but we talked about it, and I need to present the recommendation. So recommendation here is to deny the request, but further to replant a tree. There's an empty tree well there right now. So to put that up, a little more of a visual indication that there's something here, stay away, don't try and hit this. So I talked to Dave Reichel today with Forestry, and he has that on his list for this fall. And that is all I have tonight.
Okay. Questions for City Engineer Donahue? No questions? Okay, at the same time now, I think you guys planned to mess with me tonight. I think that's.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue.
Sure.
Gave you a little warning about my questions ahead of time. I hope you received those. And I also want to thank the members of the traffic committee. We've talked a lot tonight about the importance of service, and these folks donate their time to really try to make sure that Royal Oak is safe for everyone. So I want to acknowledge the work of the traffic committee. I just had a question. So I'm interested in asking some questions about the purpose of the committee. And so, which I don't have up yet, but you had some language in the purpose about residential parking. And so one of my questions was, is that committee really focused only on residential parking, or is it like parking in public space? Can you just explain that term a little bit to me?
And frankly, we didn't really talk about that focus of it. We were more focused on the other side of things. So I do think that's more of a carryover. I'll say we've looked at parking issues on Main Street. We've looked at paid parking areas. So it has not just been residential parking. If it comes to us and it's in the right of way, we've looked at it. So we could certainly strike the term residential there if you'd like.
Okay, thanks. And I might circle back to that a little bit, but so I appreciate that you have somebody who has, traffic expertise, and that they've mentioned that this term that's used in the proposed change is really standard in the field. Can you tell me a little bit about what is included in this all modes? What does that mean?
I think the idea there, it's the modes that we know of right now, right? It's scooters, people walking, biking, cars, motorcycles, transit. Maybe someday it's Jetson mobiles hovering in the air. We don't know. So I think that's the idea, though, is like new things are developed, and when we try to define that, we got into trouble with that in our right-of-way ordinance too. We started talking about what kind of scooters we could do and what we couldn't do, and then technology changes and new things come out that you didn't list specifically. And so I think when you just say all modes of travel, you cover all your bases. And so I think that's the intent behind that phrase.
Okay. And then just circling back to the parking, I mean, would it also be in this committee's purview if residents had concern about bike parking? So if there's an area where there's no bike parking here, could we add that? Would that be in this, would you envision that being in this committee's purview?
We certainly could if it was in the public right of way, if we wanted a place for bike parking, for example. There's a crossover there, right? Because a lot of that stuff is on private property or city property or in parks. So it's something we can look at. I don't think we've actually been asked to look at bike parking before, but it's certainly something that we could if it came to us.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
Those are all the questions I have.
Commissioner Herzog.
I have some similar questions. One, why did the committee decide to take out pedestrian safety?
I think because we changed it to all modes, so like pedestrians are covered under that type of mode. And when you say pedestrian, then do you start excluding bikes? And then are you excluding some? So they didn't like the idea of just saying it's only for pedestrians, safety specifically. So that's why we took that out and put in the all ages, all abilities, all modes.
Okay. And then I'm also struggling, if that's the terminology that practitioners use now, I guess I'm fine with it, but I'm struggling with it because it says for users of all ages, abilities, and modes. How I'm reading this is that we're talking about the user. So we're talking about the ages of the user, the ability of the user, and then it says modes. And so that's not, I'm thinking that modes is like a bike, walking, a car, like, so that's where I'm a little confused on that. And I know that you said in Commissioner Cheeson's questions, but maybe will the committee be thinking about motorized and non-motorized? Will they be thinking about all types of transit? Because I'm concerned that like the buckets are just too broad, that they might not really understand what the mission is as well. And then I would like to know too, was there any conversation around the actual name of the committee? So in our SCAP, our aging in place plan, our master plan, we talk a lot about mobility. And there are other communities in Michigan that have mobility committees versus traffic. I mean, I think traffic is probably the most common, but there are folks that are trying to be more encompassing. And so is there, was there any conversation around the naming, the changing of the name?
Sure, we did discuss that a little bit. Actually, the chairperson took the time to Google all of our neighbors and see did they have boards, and if they did, what were they called. A surprising number of them don't have anything formal. I think they just figure it out when people complain. The ones that were there were like traffic board, traffic and safety board, traffic and safety committee. And I was expecting him to find like a multimodal committee or something like that, and he did not find that. I will say that was just our local neighbors. I wouldn't be surprised if like Ann Arbor or something has a committee like that.
Novi, Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids, Traverse City. Those were like just quick Google. I didn't do like a deep dive.
Yeah. So yes, certainly those things exist. And we're not necessarily opposed to that either. For us, it was, are we really changing anything if we change the name of the committee? Or is it really our mission statement that tells us, that gives us our direction what to do here? And you did mention, like, is your mission too broad when you define it this way? The way things come to the traffic committee are two vehicles, pun intended. They either come complaint-driven or request-driven from residents that live here or businesses, and that's the primary way we hear about things. The other way is from the commission or from like a plan that really directs, we need to look at this very specific thing and dig into it. But we don't just go, I guess, looking for things to do. We're not going to go evaluate a new transit plan for the city. That's something that would funnel down to us and ask us our opinion on it, but we wouldn't be the first place to start that, if that makes sense.
We're talking about you.
I know. Thank you.
Sure.
We were just adding just one more point that was brought up, is also changing the name would be an ordinance change, which would be a little bit more of an in-depth process than changing the mission of what it actually does. If you think about it.
But are we opposed to doing that? I mean, it's in front of us now, so are we opposed of doing an ordinance change and all of that?
My thoughts is we have the ability to kind of, anything we do can be undone, modified, or changed. And so it's been a long time since, we made any sort of substantial change to the vision. I think taking a first attempt and stab at considering that rights of way are, for the rights of everybody, whether you're walking, running, cycling, scootering, driving, Ubering, whatever it may be, right? Busing. So I think, for me, I always like to work in layers. This is just a personal opinion. Try it, see where it goes, see what sort of issues pop up, which ones don't. And if the traffic committee says, hey, we changed our mission to be a little bit more inclusive of some of these dynamics that we're seeing, which arms them to think a little bit more critically about all the dynamics of everyone using these rights away. And if it comes back and says, okay, I think after a certain period of time, we've kind of figured this out in the groove and we see, it's working pretty well and we want to have some additional changes and a name change and all that, that might be, something to consider once you kind of try it out for a little bit. But that's just my take. I'm not passionate. Yes.
And onto that. So when the Environmental Advisory Board, or is what it's called now, Environmental Advisory Board, started in the 90s, it was called the Solid Waste Management or Solid Waste Group. I'm looking at you. But the mission and the work that the Environmental Advisory Board does is way more than just solid waste. And so they asked for a name change. And so I know that I'm not suggesting that we do this tonight or even decide this tonight, but if all of our plans are really reflecting mobility and a different way of thinking about how we move through our city, maybe the committee also has a name that reflects that.
And I think it's going to be interesting too how we bounce it against the master use plan and the upcoming zoning ordinance improvements as well. That would be kind of a interesting not guardrails, but inputs. Good point. Commissioner Cheatham.
So I think it's maybe easier for me to just put this, I was ready to do this as a motion, but I think I'd like to just kind of toss some ideas out there. You know, so Commissioner Herzog mentioned the EAB. We've also had mobility and looking at walkability be something that's been described in the Aging in Place plan, in our master plan. And for the last year and a half, I've been working on the Safe Routes to School initiative, as you know. We've been talking so much about that. And, you know, through the Safe Routes to School, I've heard a lot about concerns that are keeping kids from walking, biking, or rolling to school, things around crossings and traffic speed, traffic volume, things like that. And I think that this committee plays a really critical role for addressing these things that we are, as a city, I think, really trying to address and being very purposeful in making sure that the city is one that is designed that everyone can really be mobile across the city. And I'd really like to make sure that that's really clear in the purpose. I think the traffic committee members right now, they absolutely get that and they're doing this great work. But I'd like to make sure that this is really evident in the purpose, potentially in the name, but certainly in the purpose for the committee members of the future, and also for members of the public to understand that this committee is a place that they can turn to for concerns about a crosswalk or concerns about bike paths. We've been getting a lot of email messages to the commission about bike path conditions. And I think that this is a great committee filled with residents who care about this to field these questions. But I don't think that the purpose as it has been, and even as this is proposed, really says that. And in the traffic world, that term might be very common, but not all of us in Royal Oak are a part of that world, so we may not understand the nuance and what's all included in that. And so I had some proposed language, but I think what I really want to emphasize here is that the committee would consider different forms of mobility, including pedestrians, bicyclists, wheelchair, and other mobility device users, public transit riders, motorists, and people of all ages and abilities, because I think that broader scope embodied in this one committee would really facilitate community input into making decisions that we can do here at the table to really improve conditions in the city. So I don't know if other people want to kind of stat that around, or if I should make a motion.
I think that's a really good point. The thing that I would add is we do have a strategic planning update coming, and within there, you know, just going through them in the past, we do talk about mobility. And maybe that is the opportune time to talk about, you know, what we've learned here today, some of the ideas we've discussed. How is it is it the traffic committee, or is it something different, or is it, you know, something mixed? Is it, what priority is it? You know, I think that would be an interesting conversation when we do strategic planning this fall. I think we can do something tonight, but I think your points are very valid. And my concern would be I wouldn't want to do too much if we're going to have that conversation in a month or two, or a couple months. You know what I mean? Like, we should have that conversation, but should we look at it through a bigger lens of the strategic plan to make sure whatever we do here aligns with that strategic plan versus doing something here and then thinking about something different, the strategic plan, and then having to amend something here, you know? Basically a pause. Like, do we wait a little bit, you know?
I mean, the only thing I would say is it's here tonight. You know, I had actually reached out, spoke with the city manager about, hey, I'd love to look at the traffic committee name and purpose, and it was already on the traffic committee agenda because it also sparked up from that point too. Like, it's here, so I'm kind of interested in giving it a go and making some changes, and then also, and to your point, we can also have that be part of the conversation of the strategic plan and think about how else it might, what other things it might impact, or how we might deepen that strategy.
For sure, is that?
I agree with Commissioner Cheatham on like the phrasing. So Novi, just by my quick search, said that the Mobility Committee, its recommendations on road improvements, public transit, non-motorized transportation, and ADA compliance. I mean, it's very clear about what they're looking at. And I think this might not be as clear. And I think for future members, the clarity should be there. Now, I know that our strategic planning, it would be nice to do something tonight, but I have some questions with the phrasing as is right now. Does it nothing changes with the committee? I mean, there's no, there's no timeline that's happening with this, that it just came up. Do we wait until after our October meeting to have that discussion and then just make all the changes at that point? Instead of trying to do a little bit now and then a little bit more later and.
No, good question. I think personally, I was prepared tonight to discuss a recommendation from the traffic committee, not necessarily rewrite the strategy. So I'd like to be thoughtful about this. And so I think our options are we send it back and say, hey, we want you to consider some other things so they can do an update to the recommendation, or we also talk about this more strategically in terms of, all the things that we've done. We have a strategic plan, we're gonna update it, we have a master use plan, we have some things we're talking about right now in zoning at the Planning Commission. And, we have, for me, I'd like to be a little bit more prepared to talk about if we're gonna change a lot of stuff. If we're gonna make tweaks, okay, we can run with those tweaks. But if we're gonna do something substantial, I wouldn't be prepared to do anything tonight, because I was prepared to talk about a recommendation. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't think you're wrong. I just think for me the timing is, I think it's a really good conversation to have. We'd just like to have it, with a little bit more, I can do a little bit more homework personally. Commissioner Gantina.
So I think the points that the commissioners brought up were actually very good in the sense that sort of changing the viewpoint and making it a little bit more broad in terms of what the committee looks at, making it a little bit more clear what the committee looks at, are all good points and good food for thought. I actually agree with you, Mr. Mayor, in terms of what's in front of us today. It was a recommendation. Perhaps we don't take any action on that particular recommendation. The committee has heard all the discussion tonight. I think there's a lot of good ideas shared. I think it's maybe appropriate to let the committee stew on it for a minute, perhaps bring forward a different recommendation incorporating some of the discussion tonight. Hopefully that is timed in line with some of our strategic planning discussions, and it isn't necessarily forcing taking action tonight, revising things later, that sort of thing. I think there's been a lot of great discussion tonight that would only make the charter of that committee better, and hopefully that committee's heard all that discussion and has the opportunity to reflect on that and perhaps revise what they may want to bring forward, and have that be aligned with what we're going to be talking about through strategic planning. So.
Commissioner Cheatham?
Can I just ask what the time frame is that we're thinking about? Because one of the things that I'm thinking about is that we would be submitting the Safe Routes to School grant proposal around February, and I think this will strengthen that proposal by showing the city's and the traffic committee's investment in, in considering these factors. So I would really like to make sure that we could, ideally, if there are changes, have those in place before we submit that grant proposal.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll be blunt. I think we can get one change, a small change done today, right? If we want it to be more substantial, it could take years. But I think definitely by February, we could make this a lot clearer and better and supportive of cool initiatives like Safe Routes to School. I'm confident. But I think we said this about the toilets. We just got to draw a line in the sand. Anything that we do, we got to draw a line in the sand and be clear about it. So, Commissioner Cheatham, in my experience, your question's a good one. The answer is yes, but if we don't put any definitions around it, then the answer would be yes, but in how many years? So I think we just have to agree on what that. I think if we targeted by the end of the year, the last meeting in November as well, and we do our strategic planning, I think if we give ourselves a couple options to say, hey, we're going to do this in phases. We'll do one to get it ready by February to make it much better. And then after that, we continue to think about it in more detail if we need to. That's fine too. But I would just encourage that we put a line in the sand in terms of when we want to get it done. I'm not knocking us, I'm just saying I know how government works sometimes.
I might be thinking very naively about the timeline, but if we have one, like, does it need a lot of discussion, or really just like kind of wordsmithing what our values are? Because it is showing up in so many other spaces that
yeah.
it should be, I mean, it could be the next meeting in October, like the meeting after October, or
Yeah.
the last meeting, the 26th, or everything's being due on the Halloween.
Scary.
So,
You didn't get that one. No, you're right, but my thing is I don't know. I mean, we just had a recommendation in front of us, and I think I heard a lot, personally, I'm just saying, I heard a lot of good things tonight, and my gears are going, you know, just for some of the things that I'd like to incorporate in this. And I don't know if those are, like, I'd like to see, like, do a little bit of homework to see what, like, that vision is and benchmark a few other communities. And if we're this far away, then it's no problem. If it's this far away, then we have to decide, okay, do we kind of break it up in chunks, or do we just, like, that's my problem. Great question. Personally, I don't know the answer. And I feel like I'm answering the questions because I'm the one that's been up here. I'm like the grandfather now.
Apologies to interrupt, but we have a September meeting, we have a November meeting for traffic committee. So I think what might make sense is we go through strategic planning in October. I go to the committee in November with some of that feedback as well as what we've heard tonight. That also gives them a chance to watch the video of tonight and hear what you all had to say. And then I'll come to you. It's the first meeting in December is when we would do those traffic committee recommendations. And we could probably finalize it at that point with a lot more input and thought given to it.
And we've given them an opportunity to, I mean, six of us, minus Commissioner Colo, 7 of us when he's here, I think have pretty strong opinions, but I think leveraging the entire traffic committee, we get that many more better ideas.
So would it be appropriate for me to move to take no action on this tonight? Is that the right motion for what we're describing? Mr.
Or
Markle?
you could take a motion, you could make a motion to basically recommend that the traffic committee, like to send it back to traffic committee to consider the points we made tonight through the city engineer and come back with, and direct the city engineer to have, you know, a timeline that meets the requirements of a February conclusion. Sorry, fragmented sentences there.
Just hoping Melanie has that. So I will move to respectfully ask the traffic committee to consider what we have discussed tonight. Ms. Donahue can be the sort of messenger for that, and also for this to be an item that gets some attention during the strategic planning process, and that could also inform their discussion in November.
Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Bastian. City Engineer Donahue, is that all good? Clear? All right, perfect. All right, I think that's a good motion. I think actually got some stuff to think about personally now. Discussion. All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion's approved. All right, now that takes us to the rest of these, B through E. So you can do these one by one, or you can group them, or you can do all of them. Or you can ask additional questions. Commissioner Herzog, you had your hand up?
Motion to approve B through E.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Herzog, B through E, seconded by Commissioner Hunt. Discussion. Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Okay, this brings us to item 8, which is the Michigan Liquor Control Commission establishment, the Bevy LLC, doing business as the Bevy at 212 West 5th Avenue. Request for a new plan of operation. Chief Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commission. The Police Department received a request from the Bevy LLC to review a new proposed plan of operation to be located at 212 West 5th Avenue. The liquor license is being purchased from 116 West 4th LLC which is currently in escrow, and it was previously used at the Sidebar on 4th Street. They will be doing business as the Bevy. Michael Safaya is the current owner of 116 West 4th LLC, and as you know, he's an experienced restaurateur with over 30 years in the restaurant and bar industry. He's also been the owner of 5 restaurants in Royal Oak over those last 30 years. If approved, the Bevy will operate as an upscale American restaurant and full-service bar, and their requested hours of operation are from 12 p.m. to 2 a.m. Monday through Sunday. They anticipate their food to alcohol ratio to be 55% food to 45% alcohol, and their total proposed interior seating is for 113 patron, which includes 13 seats at the bar and 8 seats at a chef's table. And for perspective, previously Local 212 operated in this space and in this building had seating for 127 patrons, 15 bar seats and 10 seats at the chef's table there. The Bevy is also requesting an entertainment permit to have local solo performers, a DJ, or trivia nights in compliance with our entertainment agreement, and they are not offering dancing or asking for a dance permit at this location. And after a careful review, the police department is not opposed to this request. I'm happy to take any questions you might have this evening, and Mike Safaya is here with us as well if you wish to hear from him.
Questions for Chief Moore? Mr. Safaya?
Yes.
How are you? Thank you for your patience tonight. Do you want to come up and say a few words? You're not obligated to.
If you'd like me to answer any questions if you have them.
Yeah.
Just briefly, the Sidebar on West 4th Street, we were there for 5 years, and we had a 5-year term lease there. We were doing very well at the time, very successful business, and had planned on staying there for a longer period of time when we were notified by the landlord subsequently that they were not going to renew our lease. No, we weren't given a reason or anything else, but we were just informed by the attorneys that they were not going to renew our lease for another 5-year term, which we were expecting, and gave us a vacate date of 30 days to vacate the building. So that didn't work out well for us, so we had to close the business at that point. And we put the license in escrow per state of Michigan law. And we didn't do anything for a little while, and we tried to relocate a bunch of our employees to other establishments here in Royal Oak. And then it just by chance, the owners of the building over on 5th Street, the Keller Williams Corporation, contacted me and wanted to activate the space that they weren't using per se in the back of their building. So this is how this all came down to it. We did come to terms on a lease, and everything went well. We've gone through the state of Michigan process. We already, which is kind of backwards, but you know how the state works. We've already been approved for the liquor license and the transfer from 4th Street to 5th Street. So here we are today.
That's a journey.
Yes. Yeah, unexpected journey, but that's where we're at.
Any questions for Mr. Safaya? Oh, Commissioner Herzog.
I have some. I have two.
Sure.
I have two. One, why Royal Oak?
Good question, and I've been asked that many times. But when I came to Royal Oak, which was my first business in Royal Oak, started 42 years ago, and when I came here, there was maybe 3-4 restaurants and bars in town. There was not much activity going on in Royal Oak at that time, but I could see a foreseeable future that things were going to happen. And the main one was the construction of 696 that had a great impact on Royal Oak. And it was, the commissions at the time were starting to think more progressively about creating a downtown, and they were, helpful in doing that. So, that was it. So we started one 42 years ago, and I've done 5 other locations. This will be my 6th one without leaving Royal Oak and staying within the boundaries, so.
That's great. And then
Yeah.
what excites you about this new space?
Well, this space, I'm really excited about it because of the development that's taking place on Fifth Street. I think it will benefit us, and I think it will benefit Fifth Street itself to not have a vacant building on that street, and making sure that there's activity going on a regular basis. So I'm excited about Fifth Street. We've done a lot of things on this side of Main Street, and if we can get some development now on the other side of Main Street, that along with developing more activity on Washington Avenue, I think it's going to be a good thing for all of us.
Mr. Bastian.
Mr. Safai, thank you so much.
Yes.
I happen to have a personal familiarity with the building because I used to work there.
Okay.
I'm assuming you will be completely walled off from the real estate office?
Yeah, it'll be completely separated. And I'm pretty sure at when we go through the permitting process that we're going to be, right now, currently it's under one address, which is the Keller Williams address. But when we go through the permitting process, we'll be separating and we'll have our own address at that.
That's
which
good.
we assume
Those
is going
realtors
to
like
be
to drink.
212 because that's what it was prior.
And how long do you anticipate it will take to make the necessary indoor changes to accommodate your plan?
There's a lot of the structural stuff is still in the right place, and we have a little bit of kitchen work to do to bring it up to par. But the bar area and the dining area are in great condition, and we anticipate anywhere between 45 to 60 days.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Mr. Hunt?
Can you talk about the type of establishment that it's going to
Yeah,
be?
sure. So it is going to be what we consider an upscale style restaurant. We try to avoid, to be honest with you, we try to avoid using the term fine dining because there's certain expectations that come with fine dining, and we're not sure that location is primed for fine dining. So, but yeah, we're going to be doing upscale type food, sandwiches and salads, and we have a brick oven pizza, which is actually in the area of the bar that people can sit around and view while their food is actually being prepared. So yeah, we'll be doing some entertainment 2 to 3 nights a week just to provide, it'll just be either a solo or a duo type situation. We won't be having any big bands or anything like that.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your continued support of Royal Oak.
Thank you. Anything else?
I think that's good, Mr.
I'll let
Safai.
you-
Thank you. Now, I'll just add, Mr. Safai mentioned 42 years in Royal Oak, and that there were folks that thought progressively about the downtown, and he shouldn't sell himself short because He has also been a volunteer and service member in the community, and through his commercial risk-taking has helped build our Royal Oaks downtown for what we know it today. So he was gracious enough to point to others, but I think it's worth recognizing his contributions as well. Okay. Commissioner Bastian.
I would like to move approval for the request for the new plan of operation for the Bevy LLC.
Okay, we've got a motion by Commissioner Bastian and, oh geez.
Would you like that? I'm just kidding.
Anybody else? We'll go with Commissioner Gantina in the second. All right, discussion? Commissioner Herzog.
It's hard to pick your favorite kid, right?
That's there's too many good things to look at.
Tonight's been all about, a lot of our conversation tonight has been about service. So I just wanted to point out that Mr. Safaya serves on our DDA and has been serving our community for quite some time. And then I also want to appreciate the fact that he's had a long time investing in our community and trying to do new things all of the time and being innovative. So we appreciate that.
Commissioner Gantina.
Oh, I just want to thank Mr. Safaya for sticking with the city. Businesses often face unforeseen circumstances, things that are out of your control, that could cause you to sort of pack up and be done with it and move on. Obviously, you're very dedicated to this city, and this is another instance where, rather than doing nothing, you found another way to continue to be dedicated to this city. So I just want to say thank you for sticking with it, and I'm happy to be in support of this.
Anybody else? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, can't wait for that opening in 40 to 60 days. Hopefully. Construction's always on time, Mr. Safaya. I don't. Well, good luck, sir. All right, this brings us to item 9, which is recommendation for Vincetta Bridges assessment. Mr. Yee, there you are.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Commission. The 4 Vincetta crossovers at Mayfield Avenue, Greenleaf Drive, Woodsboro Drive, and Cedar Hill Drive have decorative walls that are commonly referred to as the Vincetta Bridges. The Red Run Drain was previously a creek that ran through this area with structural bridges across for traffic. The drain was enclosed in the 1920s, and the area was backfilled and restored with grass, trees, and road crossovers. The bridge walls remained adjacent to the road crossovers as a decorative element. The Royal Oak Historic District Commission, the Royal Oak Historic District Study Commission, and the Vincetta Bridge Task Force has spent several years studying the history of these bridges and ultimately received approval to designate the medians of Vincetta Boulevard as a historic district under city control. The HDC has worked with Soil and Material Engineers, SME, in 2024 to prepare a proposal to perform material testing and analysis of the bridge structures themselves to determine the best method to preserve them. But the work was not funded and ultimately did not occur. Staff recently requested an updated proposal from SME with current pricing, a proposal from Hubbell Roth & Clark, HRC, for comparison, and a quote from RAM Construction for physical repair work. Staff presented the attached memorandum outlining the various options and proposals to the HDC at their July 21st meeting. After much discussion, the HDC voted to recommend the City Commission approve the SME proposal. They felt the SME proposal would provide a more thorough analysis of the current conditions of the structures in comparison to the HRC proposal. They were not comfortable with moving forward with a design-build contractor effort without first studying the existing materials to ensure a safe and compatible repair design. They also felt the testing data provided by SME could help them provide a stronger basis for fundraising efforts in the future and potentially meet state requirements if the bridges are ever given a state historical designation in the future. Along with the test results, the SME scope of work will also include potential repair methods and cost estimates. The proposal does not include detailed design, contract document preparation, or construction inspection services. HGC has requested that the city fund the SME work because they expect to have greater success fundraising for actual construction work rather than a study. This study will also set expectations for the necessary levels of fundraising. This work is not included in the current budget. However, the approved budget for the Orson Star House roof repairs is set at $120,000, while we are expecting the work to be closer to $80,000, leaving $40,000 in extra funding. While there are many needs in the general fund, the City Commission should consider approving $25,000 for the SME study as recommended by the HDC. So the recommendation is to approve the proposal from Soil and Material Engineers, SME, of Plymouth, Michigan, and the amount of $25,000, and direct staff to issue a purchase order in this amount, and a budget adjustment for the Vincetta Bridge assessment be approved utilizing funds remaining from the Orson Star House roof replacement project. And I also want to say that I appreciate the education that I received from the HDC on the bridges, on the work to be done. There's a lot of expertise there, and as we had talked about before, they have a great base of knowledge on the bridges and on historic structures, and it was great to work with them and come up with this recommendation.
Good. Questions for Mr. Yee? We'll go with Commissioner Hunt.
Well, thank you, Mr. Yee, for your presentation, and thank you to the HDC and the study committee for your words here tonight. But I have a question about, so RAM Construction indicated that the concrete coring, ground penetration radar, and the non-destructive testing wouldn't provide them with any information needed for the repair, which would be the next step after getting the testing done. So what is it that SME would provide that would allow for any construction moving forward that they don't know now?
So I think what I've learned is that you can, if you mix the wrong materials, it can cause further degradation of the existing structure and historic structure. So, as I mentioned, I've done a lot of infrastructure work over my time. Doing historic work is new to me, so I'm learning as we go, and I've had some great input from the commission on who do have experience working with historic structures, that just simply doing a skim coat or doing some repair work and not using the proper materials or not preparing it properly could be more detrimental than helpful. So RAM Construction felt that, and they've done historic work before, but they didn't think that there was a great deal of, that they could do it without doing that extra work. However, in educating myself, I've learned that there can be some conflict in materials and cause further damage if you don't do the proper fix.
So is this more of just a precaution?
It's a precaution, and I think it is finding the best solution for the current conditions.
Commissioner Herzog? Oh, okay.
I know that
Sure.
you're leading.
Whatever you need. Commissioner Gantino?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a couple of questions. I actually appreciate Commissioner Hunt's question because I think it's pretty clear how the RAM proposal is different from the other two proposals. You mentioned that the SME proposal was the one that seemed more comprehensive. Looking at the two proposals, they do seem very similar to me. So can you help me understand in a little bit more detail what SME is going to be providing that the HRC proposal does not offer?
Sure. SME is going to do a more comprehensive material study. So they're going to take cores of the existing bridge. They're going to analyze that material for, what is there, what condition it's in, and the best possible fix based on that. The HRC is they're going to do visual inspections and structural inspections, but it isn't going to do a material analysis. And that was the one concern that was brought forth, is making sure that we're using compatible materials that we're repairing the bridge with what is existing.
Okay. The next question is, again, back to both the proposals. Having read through both of them, it looks like neither one of them in their scope of work addressed doing an assessment from a structural or safety perspective. I assume that's because at this point in time, do any of the bridges pose any structural or safety issue right now?
Well, they're currently, the Mayfield Bridge is in very poor condition, and it's really virtually falling down, or a large portion of it is falling down. The cracking and the failures in that bridge, because it has been hit several times as well, are very evident, and I'm not sure that that bridge can even be salvaged as it exists. But, the study will tell more, because again, that's not my area of expertise, but just looking at it, my visual observation is it's in very poor condition. I'm hoping that the other ones can be salvaged and repaired, and we can do the proper fix.
But from a roadway condition perspective, there's no imminent danger.
So I don't see there being any imminent danger. Anything I've seen under the bridges, there's no failures that you can see. There was an overlay done of those bridges not too long ago, and when they did mill and fill it, they did not notice any detrimental structural failures of the decking itself.
Okay. And then my last question is, when the designation was first created, part of the rationale for it was to facilitate the ability to get grant funding to help improve those bridges and kind of conduct some of this work. I understand that you're looking for funding approval for this study, and there's some potential sources from other projects that have already been identified. My question is, have any grant funding or other sources of funding been pursued for this first phase of the work before this request for funding has come up?
So as I understand it, there has been the HDC and I would say the HDC has looked for further funding, and the thought was that there could not be funding without having an analysis first of what they have. The study, to do a study or to do the analysis, there was no grant funding that they could find for that first phase. So the hope was that if there was a further study or further analysis, you would have kind of a platform to then request further funding and grant funding.
Commissioner Herzog.
Thank you. I'm going to piggyback off of some questions that my colleagues had. We'll start with the funding. So to Commissioner Gantina's point, that was the reason for the first study, was to find funding and maybe a planning grant. So planning grants were searched out, but they didn't align, or what was actually
I kind of jumped in the later stages of this, but as I understand it, they have been looking for grant funding for the study phase, and there hasn't been anything available. The feeling was that they needed this first step in order to work towards other grant funding.
Because at that time, it was told to us that if we approve the historic designation, that will get them grant funding. And so tonight we're hearing again that by approving SME, they will have a better chance at funding than if we do HRC. And so I am curious to know, what is the grant or the funding strategy using the data that will become from SME? Have they looked at what grants are available? Are there construction grants? Or are they going to do fundraising efforts? Who's leading the effort? So that we are actually making a decision that is from something that's already been researched. Because you can come up with a funding strategy before having any data.
Right. I would say I'd have to defer to the commission members on that. Like I said, I've recently jumped into this project based on the request from the HDC, and as I understand it, this is what we have talked about, that there are funding sources potentially available both in fundraising and grants, but no one really wanted to touch it without first having some sort of a basis.
Can we ask the commission what they've looked into?
We can.
I don't mean to put you on the
Yeah,
spot.
can we do that?
That's fine. No, we
I have more
should.
questions, but I think since we're talking about funding, what have you done previously?
So, towards the end of 2024, Carol is our staff liaison. So we started looking at a CLG grant. And by going down that road, it kind of opened up a bigger issue where we found that we really needed a professional to write, the grant. We don't know how to write those. So the idea is even going, and I'll find out more on Wednesday when I talk to SHPO about it, because they're basically saying, yes, there's grant opportunities if you're, state registered, nationally registered, but some of them, they're going to say, have you done an assessment? What have you done to get to a certain point? So I think grants is still something we need to seek, but.
And I think that, to your point, to go apply for them, you need to know those things. But do you have an understanding of what is actually out there that's available?
So we've done a lot of brainstorming on fundraising options, from working with the city to find an initial, investment to, we're part of the Clinton watershed. So there's historic funding if you're doing anything, with plaques, but we have not pursued anything beyond that. So it's basically just right now trying to understand what we would need. So yeah.
Okay. That sounds great, because you guys are a volunteer board,
Yeah.
and then so I'm not trying
Right.
to, I just want to have an understanding of what has been done so that we can make a good decision.
Yeah.
Because without knowing what grants are out there, we don't know if we are getting the right information to apply to those grants and if we actually align to them. And so I think that might have been a little bit of the issue with the first round of coming to the commission and saying we need this designation to get grant funding. And then now we're saying that we need this information, but we don't actually know what the funding opportunities are out there besides the city just paying for them.
And this has been the fun part of a 2.5-year endeavor of trying to work with the city to figure out where we go. And we've gone kind of in circles, and it's who's advising us on how we get these grant opportunities. And so that's where we've it's like, where can we go get grants? How do we do this? We need a professional to tell us. So we've come up with, where can we find money? We'll ask private citizens or companies or anything like that. There's ways to fund, but we don't know what to ask for. Can we save all 4 bridges? Can we only work with 3 of them? What does it cost? Because by doing that, then we can actually say, we know we need to use this type of material to fix the Cedar Hill Bridge. Who would like to sponsor that? Or is there anything in the city budget, that's 2 years down the road or whatever? Plus, it gives us an idea of what's the immediate need. Like, Mayfield's obviously immediate, but do we have 10 years on another one?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know until we actually get the assessment. So that's where we've kind of been since the beginning of 2024. We've known since the beginning of 2024 that the engineering assessment is what we need to do to understand how we proceed. And through changing city managers and all sorts of fun stuff, we've kind of gone in a circle. And it took us to this point to have the staff independently do their own research and bring it forward. And I think we did the right thing. They came to the HDC, we voted on it, so.
And we very much appreciate all of the hard work of the committee, and it is like you're volunteers and passionate and experts, and you're bringing forth information for then the city to then make, to do the work. So thank you so much for those, so that I know where we're at as with all this. And now I have some more questions. Sorry. So how did SME come into play? We have on here. You say HRC is currently under contract with the city. But how did SME get asked to submit a proposal?
So the HDC had worked with SME, a couple years ago and got a proposal to do exactly this. SME is more of a materials testing type of company. HRC is an engineering, I would say, a client rep. They do design work, they do that sort of thing. But I think for something like this, knowing and understanding the materials and the condition that they're in is very critical, and that's what SME is going to be. They're going to have a higher level of expertise in that. HRC was going to do more visual assessments, and then they would do what they would do a good job at is more of the client rep work, or the, putting the whole project together and being a project manager. So, we thought at this point for sure we would want to get a better idea of the materials and the best fixes based on what we have.
I'm struggling too with and maybe you can help me, is the materials. So the materials that were used in 1920 to build, or I'm sorry, I don't know the year, but, and then today, like how much analysis needs to be done for understanding what those bridges are made of to make sure that we...
Well, there are if you mix different materials, you can have negative reactions. So that happens in concrete all the time. You'll see failure in concrete roads that are 10 years old because there's a reaction within that concrete that didn't work out. So I think you need to know the science behind the concrete and things like that were used. And I think that's what SME's proposal is going to give us a better idea. Make sure we're using the right materials to patch or to, coat or whatever we're doing. Make sure it's going to be what's going to preserve it and not actually potentially be more detrimental to it.
And we do this type of analysis for any type of infrastructure that we do in the city?
Well, generally, our infrastructure projects that we put in now are new road or an overlay over something,
Okay.
or this is definitely a unique project for what we would do for normal city infrastructure work.
And then I was also looking at the contract, and it said that SME will meet, I was looking at their proposal, and that they will come and meet with us, but only between 8 and 5.
Yeah.
And a lot of our work happens after 5.
And I
so
did
that
talk-
will be an extra cost. Do we have an understanding of what that extra cost will be?
I did talk to them about that, and they will do some after-hours work. So they understand that as a government, we will have that.
Okay. All right, I think that's it. Sorry.
So in summary, what I hear is 25 grand to figure out what needs to be done, how much it would cost, and what the timing of that is, so we can decide the next steps related to this historically designated bridge area. And I'm saying area because the area was kind of all part of the designation. And we're recommending SME because, frankly, it's always a materials game with these type of bridges. Is the concrete holding up or not? What does it look like with the core? And, are they in good shape and it's cosmetic, or they're structurally unsound and you got to start from, ground zero? So that's my understanding, and that in the event, or not, if this gets approved, then we have the ability to understand those things and then put together a better fundraising plan, because we know what we can go after, what phases to do it in, the timing. And then on top of that, we also have, a little bit of a better conversation maybe with the city's grant writer and how to support, with applications and things like that to make it a little better. But we're not deciding tonight to fix all the bridges and do whatever it takes to make them perfect. I'll be frank, if it comes back, oh, it's $10 million, well, you'll be waiting a long time. I mean, that's just not, that'd be a hard pill to swallow. But if there's something we can manage here to keep the historical significance and integrity in place, we gotta literally drill in and figure out what's going on.
Correct.
I have one more
That's a good
question.
summary.
Anybody else? Commissioner Herzog.
Sorry. Has the city worked with SME before?
I would defer to Holly on that. Not, yes, I worked for them, so I'm very familiar with SME. I did work for them, and I've worked with them in the past. But it sounds like we have not. Holly's worked with them in a former career as well, but I don't know that they've done work here recently, it sounds like.
How were they selected for the first study? Did we pay them to do that work?
No, as I understand it,
Quickly, yeah, one of the members on the task force is very familiar. He's an architect. He works with them. So we've done a lot of things where we've asked for favors. We've had expertise come out and say, hey, can you look at this? We've gotten some good feedback. But so we just asked about it, and they came out and they said, yeah, we could put together a proposal for doing that. So that's how it came, just so because we didn't know. It's like, what do we need to do? We need to understand what's going on with the bridges. We know there's voids under at least one of them that needs to be, filled in to make sure it doesn't fall in. So that's why. And there's not necessarily anything that we received on, this is the process of what you do.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So is there a process for selecting engineering firms to do work for the city?
I apologize. What was the question?
Is there a process for selecting engineering firms to do work for the city?
Yes, there is a process. And generally, we have three consultants currently, 3 engineering consultants that are currently approved to do work. But this is a little unique in the fact that it is a testing job. It is different than our normal infrastructure projects, where they would project manage a project. SME's role is more of a materials testing company. So generally, like an HRC would hire an SME to do materials testing on a job. It generally is not something a lot of the client rep type or project manager type engineering firms would have. We did get the proposal from HRC to have a good basis in comparison. It was less, but it didn't include the testing element, which is, we think, critical when you're doing this type of job.
Okay. Do you recommend SME for this job? Not the recommendation from the committee, the recommendation coming from you and Holly. And the reason why I ask that is we had a city committee got a favor and got a proposal written by an engineer or a consulting firm. And now we're going to go forward, we may go forward with this firm. And so I just want to make sure that we're vetting, it's been vetted, it's a great, this is the path that we as a city want to do.
Yes, absolutely. And honestly, I wouldn't put this down and represent it if I didn't feel comfortable that it was a good recommendation.
Commissioner Cantina.
I do apologize, I have one more question. So all these proposals, including the one from RAM, all seem to be predicated on the foregone conclusion of we will be doing something to these bridges. What I don't see in the scope of work is if there is the potential for them to identify if it's not necessarily reasonably feasible to rehabilitate these bridges. My concern is in terms of the scope of work that's here in these proposals and this analysis and testing is done, if the conclusion is, I mean, of course, as the mayor pointed out, with enough money, anything's possible, but if one of the conclusions is that the effort and dollars required to reasonably rehab these bridges is really a non-starter, that doesn't seem to be addressed in any of these proposals. I understand they're doing an analysis and assessment to sort of help us quantify and understand how much it's going to cost to rehabilitate the bridges. At the same time, if one of the conclusions is it's not feasible, I don't see that addressed in these proposals, and I'm wondering, should we have that as one of the potential outcomes that they take a look at and really advise us appropriately? Because if we're going to be spending these dollars, I think we need to make sure that whatever the next steps that are identified are the most appropriate next steps. I don't think simply doing an analysis and presenting an estimate to us just for the sake of the conversation that says, yep, for $10 million you can restore all these bridges, that's not helpful to us, and that's ultimately not a good use of $25,000. If there's money spent that says through all this analysis we've determined that it's not prudent to move forward because it's going to cost $10 million, I don't really see that addressed in these proposals. All of these, again, seem predicated on the fact that we're going to be doing something, and I'm worried that that sort of skews what the outcome of this analysis is going to be at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know when we've talked with them, Mayfield Bridge is definitely questionable. So we have definitely discussed the potential that Mayfield in particular there may not be a fix for that bridge. So that has definitely been discussed. I would expect that, and in discussing it, that the other three look like they're strong candidates for a rehab and ability to save them reasonably, not for $10 million, but for a reasonable cost. So this analysis, I feel like just having talked to each of them, that part of the proposal overall is going to give us what the best or most reasonable repairs or other strategies for these bridges are going to be. So I feel confident that is included in that. It is going to be, if it's not reasonable to keep the bridge or to do something different, then that would definitely be part of the recommendation.
Yeah. What I hear is, if we go back a little bit at a high level, we were here when we discussed at length, and actually Pat Perush was a big part of this conversation, about the bridges, and the main question is, do we want to preserve the history of these bridges or not? And if the answer is yes, as pre-indicated by the previous work we've done, then what is the next viable step? And the next viable step that's being recommended to us by the HDC and by staff is to have SME do a contract to understand the material composition, integrity of the 4 bridges, although we can do some physical observations, that doesn't always get you to the core. In fact, the inverse of this is the railroad bridge on 11. Oh, it looks terrible, but it's good, is it? Yeah, I think that's what I understand where we're at right now. And, you know, I don't want to say it's a gamble, but if we're serious about preserving these bridges, and if we're not, then vote no, and whatever happens, you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to clear out the stuff and, you know, make them wider, do whatever you're going to do to just make them normal pathways in roads and streets. But if you want to keep, you know, the integrity there, then we have to spend the money to see what condition they're in, and then based on that, we have to really push hard. And it may come back, they're in bad condition, here's what we have to spend, here's the timeline and the plan, and then we don't have any funding to do it. Okay, that's another decision point. You know, I guess we can't do it for now, or we do one, or we do some things. But I think that's the crux that we're at, is do we want to, if we're serious about keeping these bridges and keeping the historical significance of them, the recommendation is to spend $25,000 to peer into them and see what's going on. Mr. Bastian.
Just for Mr. Yee, first of all, I really appreciate your work on this and your collaboration with the historic boards and Ms. Donahue as well. I know that you were involved. In the conversations that you had with the boards, did they speak to doing fundraising pursuant to the results of the study? For example, if the study were to come back and find that it's an amount that is nebulous at this point, but theoretically within the realm that they feel that they could raise funds, did they speak to that with you at all?
Yes, actually, that was what they felt. They needed this platform of the study to know what that amount was, so they knew what they had to do to try to find funding and to try to fundraise or to go through whatever means or methods they had to do. But this was an important part of that because they don't know what to ask for. So they really can't fundraise when they didn't know what to ask for. So that was a large part of our conversation that we had.
Thank you. And then did they speak about, you know, seeking grants, maybe working with the city's grant writer or with their staff liaison about seeking grants?
Yes, they were talking of seeking grants, correct.
Okay, and did they speak with you at all about potentially seeking state or national historic designation for the bridges in order to potentially make further grant funding available?
There was some discussion on it.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword when you talk about that, because once you get to that level, if we come to the conclusion one of these bridges it's too expensive, it doesn't make sense to keep this up, our hands are tied. We won't be able to get rid of it. We will have to pay for it. So you're like, it's kind of a toss-up, but to get the grant money, I think you often need to have that state and or national designation. And so I think that's what the big struggle has been with trying to find grants, is people probably aren't going to do that at just the local level for something designated historic.
Sure. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
But if we get a little bit more visibility into what's going on, then we can make even another decision to say, oh, it's really cosmetic, it's not going to cost us a lot, then yeah, let's get it historically designated, versus the other situation that Ms. Donahue put out where, like, oh my goodness.
The historical designation would be forever, so
Yeah.
that is something to consider. It's not just a cost now, it's a cost into the future too. So
Yeah.
those are things to
Could be
consider.
a really big cost in the future if,
They
but if you
could
don't
be.
know, you don't know. That's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to
Correct.
find out. Trying to spend some good money to avoid the bad money, if
Right.
possible. Okay. We got like 30 staff members here tonight, filming, watching, hanging out. We've probably spent $25,000 in opportunity cost. So I think we're at a point where someone's got to make a motion or we got to move on because mayor's getting cranky. Commissioner Bastian.
I'll motion to approve the staff recommendation.
A motion by Commissioner Bastian, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Hunt. Discussion. Commissioner Herzog.
I just want to say that we really appreciate the committee for going through all this work, having the proposals. I know it's a lot of work. Also, it's not clear on what the next step is, and that can be really frustrating. I also want to make a point that we want these bridges to look nice for that community, or for our community, right? We don't want them to look terrible. We can fix the 11-mile viaduct, guys. It will cost us $100,000, I think, the last time I asked about it, to paint the bridge and make it look like Birmingham. But I don't think our community wants us to put $100,000 towards that. So it's trying to figure out what our priorities are, how much money we want to put towards things. What I was trying to get at tonight was, does SME give us something more that HRC can't, just to get the value, and for that next step of, are we thinking about the next strategy? I am supportive of this, especially since our professional staff is very supportive of it. So I will be voting yes.
Mr. Bastian?
I also wanted to once again thank Mr. Yee and Ms. Donahue for being very creative in finding the funding for this, and coming up with the assessment that this funding for this could come from a different historic project. I think that is both suitable and justifiable, so I just wanted to thank you once again for that.
Anybody else? I would say there's some uncertainties, right? That's why we're doing this. And then afterwards we have less uncertainty. But the one thing that is certain, that I believe will drive a successful outcome here, is the passion of the HDC and the members that have put a lot of effort going above and beyond to tackle this project. So we have that as a pretty cheap insurance with a big impact, that folks are going to keep on this and make sure it stays in focus the right way. So I'm confident in that regard. All right, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, thank you. I'm sure we learned a lot about the inner workings of how a lot of commissioners think, but it was a good conversation. It was a really good conversation. I said commissioners, not commissioners.
I know, we learned a lot about how commissioners think.
All right, this brings item 10, the approval of Center Street Garage Commercial Space Lease Agreement Renewal. Is Mr. Gachowski going to call in from his vacation, or can we rely on the prudence of Mr. Markham?
Well, I'll give it a shot. I actually wrote the original agreement for this. So this is essentially the continuation of the school district's existing use of the Center Street garage space, this being a retail space that is glassed off in the front of the building. The proposed agreement formalizes the use for another 2 years, sets the rent and utility payments, and preserves the city's ability to reclaim the space on 30 days' notice if it's ever needed back for any particular reason. Put simply, this gives Royal Oak students a place to build robots in a parking garage, which is kind of charmingly unconventional for municipal use.
I like the way you phrase that. I'm going to have to steal that. Commissioner Cheatham?
I was just going to move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Cheatham, second by Commissioner Herzog. All right, discussions. Commissioner Gantina.
I just have one question. Were was the district previously paying rent for this space, or is the fact that they're going to be paying rent and for the utilities a new addition to this new lease?
The rent was previously the nominal $1 that is the contractual minimum for it to be an enforceable contract. So this has gone up several 100%, as certain people would like to phrase that.
Commissioner Herzog.
Fun fact, Dr. Herzog taught robotics at Michigan State University, and I think it's so great to support students in STEM. not only are you building robots, and that is so cool in itself, but it really is teaching students about teamwork, overcoming conflict, talking about technology innovation. And so I am in full support of this. However, I don't know if it's a long-term solution, even a long-term solution for this partnership, but I am very supportive of this right now.
Fun fact, Mayor Fournier danced to Mr. Roboto at Michigan State University. So. Commissioner Chisholm.
I don't have a fun fact to top that, but I just wanted to say that, I'm in support of this. So the schools provide the robotics program to a lot of students. I know a lot of commissioners up here, we've had our children in that program. I also would, just think that this is a good use of the space right now to serve our community. It's a good partnership with the schools. Again, this may not be a forever thing. I know we had a conversation about that, the most recent city school liaison committee, that there may be a time where we do need to use this space for something else. But we want to support the schools. We want to support the students in this program. And so I'm really pleased to support this, this resolution.
Anybody else? Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, the term on it, even if you were to repurpose the space, it's going to take a while to market and do all that. So I think it's a great use. And, I think when they were here doing the demonstration, there's a lot of folks that actually come, parents and kids, and patronize it downtown and, spend money. But, we're not bound like on a 30-year lease, right? So there's always flexibility down the road if they decide to go somewhere or we decide there's a better use down the road too. So, okay. All right. Who made the motion? Commissioner Chisholm made the motion, but we didn't get a second.
Yeah.
Oh, we did? Oh, yeah, Commissioner Herzog, that's right. All right, any discussion? Okay. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. Now we have the Department of Public Services proposed organizational realignment. Mr. Yee.
Thank you. We've talked about this for some time, but as part of the city's ongoing efforts to strengthen infrastructure planning, service delivery, and long-term asset management, the staff has continued to evaluate the organizational alignment between the Department of Public Services and the Engineering Division. These discussions have been underway for several months. During this period, engineering leadership and key staff have actively participated in DPS supervisory meetings and field operations, gaining experience into or direct exposure to the day-to-day maintenance, construction, and service delivery activities. This collaboration has proven benefit for both teams and reinforced the close relationship between infrastructure design, construction, and ongoing maintenance. The Matrix Consulting Group report on the Department of Public Services identified several key challenges facing the department. Most of these challenges resolve around professional management, including appropriate documentation, strategy, asset management, and use of technology. Many of these challenges are inherent to the Engineering Division's responsibilities. Because both departments are focused on planning, maintaining, and improving the city's infrastructure, combining them will create a stronger, more coordinated organization that is better equipped to serve the community. Staff is proposing to combine DPS and engineering to create the Department of Public Works, DPW. Under the proposed framework, DPW would accomplish both operational and engineering functions within a unified department while retaining clearly defined roles for field operations, utilities, streets, facilities, and parks-related functions. The structure preserves the existing operations manager role overseeing day-to-day operation activities and allows for the introduction of a deputy director role to support department-wide initiatives, coordination, and continuity. Importantly, this approach is designed to rely on the reclassification of an existing position rather than creating a new full-time position. Key anticipated benefits of this organizational alignment include stronger coordination between infrastructure, planning, design, construction, and maintenance, improved administrative depth and continuity for budgeting, procurement, and contract management, enhanced succession planning and leadership development, greater cross-training and institutional understanding among engineers and operations staff, and more effective alignment of capital investment decisions with long-term maintenance and operational realities. Implementation of this alignment is expected to follow a phased approach. The city engineer will continue to deepen familiarity with departmental operations with the intent of gradually assuming broader oversight responsibilities over time. This measured transition prioritizes continuity, knowledge transfer, and professional development rather than immediate structural change. As part of this process, the city anticipates conducting a salary and classification review associated with any reclassification leadership role to ensure market alignment and internal equity. So attached is also an organizational chart that would show the proposed structure of the department, newly created combination department, combined department.
So I have a question maybe here is, we had community development, which had city engineering as part of planning and building and all of that. Can you kind of explain maybe how things will be shaken up or changed in that regard? Is it that there's more reliance on the actual execution and operation on the engineering side, or, you know, are we still going to participate? Like, explain that to me. Maybe it's a little late and I'm not.
Sorry, I have to share a mic here. So engineering will continue to do what we've done in terms of the community development side. Technically, we don't have community development anymore. We have planning and building are under economic development. Engineering is kind of sad and by itself right now. So I think we align a lot better with what DPS does for most of our day-to-day, but that doesn't mean we stop doing coordination with planning, with building. Our permitting process is still there. We're still very much at City Hall. With hopefully some crossover. Like sometimes staff will be at DPW working with supervisors and getting more experience with that, but still maintaining our presence here at City Hall.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Gantina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Yee, for bringing this forward. I think what you presented actually does make quite a bit of sense to me in terms of just the crossover with the work that actually happens between these departments. You mentioned one of the key benefits was enhanced succession planning, leadership development. One of the things that helped me quite a bit was that org chart. That's really where my question stems from. Is there's obviously a lot of talented people across all of the organization. But there's a lot of folks that have quite a bit of responsibility in terms of the teams that are under them. My question is really the strategy around that succession planning or leadership development and how you currently look at that. Is that something you currently budget for right now? Understanding that there's other certifications and things that are sort of separate to the conversation that I'm having. Can you talk a little bit about how you're looking at the organization and some of those folks in the leadership roles and what strategies you're going to implement and how you're going to budget for that actual leadership training and management training for them?
Great. I'm glad you asked because succession planning has been one of my priorities since I arrived. There hasn't, to be completely honest, over the history, there hasn't been a lot of it, and there hasn't been a lot of leadership training. We have a lot of supervisors who are great workers. They were promoted through the ranks, and we kind of stopped there. Like, congratulations, you're a supervisor. But I am big on getting people professionally developed. We've been sending to all of our supervisors to what's called Michigan Public Service Institute, which is a great training. It's 1 week a year for 3 years, and it's a great training. I have an MBA, and I've gone to a lot of schooling, and it's probably the best educational experience as far as leadership goes that I've experienced. So all of our supervisors are going to that currently, enrolled in that. I plan to leave this place in a much better position than the way I found it, where people are trained, we're getting the next people ready. We're identifying people who are potential leaders, and we're starting to train them early and getting them more involved in the operation. So I think it's critical, and it's something that I've prioritized since I've been here, of trying to get the leaders to be trained and to learn the craft.
And just to add to that, from the engineering side, knowing that, as I transition a little bit more onto the DPW side of things, we don't want to leave anything hanging on the engineering side. We have an engineer in mind who's done wonderful work so far, and we did budget for a promotion for that, to essentially act as a deputy city engineer. It's technically classified as an engineer 4, but it is budgeted, planned for, and that also lines up really well with the whole succession planning concept.
Your recommendation in front of you. Commissioner Herzog.
Motion to approve.
Yeah, motion by Commissioner Herzog. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Bastian. Discussion. Okay. I mean, again, it's one of these things that seems to be well thought out. We're having to move and change a little bit from time to time. Anything that we do with the org chart, can have consequences, right? But nothing that is permanently, that we can't undo if it's not working out. But, the people that are making this recommendation are ultimately responsible for the outcomes. They have been performing, and we should have our trust in them and their recommendations. And so I will be supporting this motion. And, I think it's a good one. But if not, it's all your fault, Holly. Just kidding. All right, I'll call for the vote. All
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
This, I believe, requires 5 affirmative votes, and there's 6 members here. I recommend a roll call for that reason.
Do a roll call. In case we have a nay. Okay, all right, who is the motion maker? Commissioner Herzog? Okay, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes. How do you vote, Commissioner Bastian?
Yes.
Commissioner Gantina? Commissioner Hunt? Commissioner Cheeseman, it doesn't matter, but how do you vote?
I support it.
Okay. All right, we got 6 of them. Good? Perfect. All right. Next item on tonight's agenda is the Water Tap and Kill 2026-27 fee schedule report. Mr. Yee, you're a popular man tonight.
Good evening again. As part of the master administrative fee schedule that was approved by the City Commission at the first meeting, at the meeting in June, thank you, and was incorporated into the 2026-27 budget, the new rates took effect on July 1st of 2026. Attached are detailed descriptions of fee schedule adjustments for water taps and kills included in the master administrative fee schedule. Fees for water taps and kills have not been thoroughly reviewed and updated for many years. It is critical to ensure these fees are adjusted annually to cover the cost the city incurs for performing these services so that the beneficiaries of these services cover the costs. Otherwise, the remaining ratepayers of the system not receiving any benefit subsidize these services. During the first month of implementation of the new fee schedule, the city has received complaints about the significant increases of the fees charged for water taps and kill services. Staff believes the fees are appropriate based on the cost for providing these services, and note for many years, the properties requiring the water taps and kill services have benefited by paying lower than the cost of these services, which, as stated, has meant the expense has been borne by all the other system ratepayers. For the remainder of this budget year, the city plans to use a mix of in-house crews and outside contractors to perform the work. Regardless, the costs for either are similar and within a reasonable variance of the approved fee schedule. So the request for this is a receive and file.
Questions? Commissioner Gantina?
It's not a question, it's more just a comment. Working in this industry, having paid these fees myself within the city, but also knowing what these fees are charged in some of our neighboring cities, I was actually shocked as to how low our fees were in relation to other neighboring cities for this work. Given the data and the fact that we have not updated these fees in a decade, I wholeheartedly support this change because understanding it's has an effect, and it's painful for a lot of folks that have projects within the city. We have to do what's right by all of the folks in the city, and I think making this change is a fair change. Change is always difficult, but I think it's the right thing to do in terms of managing our costs appropriately.
Mr. Hunt?
I just have a question for Mr. Yee. These, the costs are strictly the cost of having to replace or shut off these particular units. There's no additional cost to it. The city isn't making a profit off of it. It's the actual cost to it.
Right, there is no necessarily profit, we can't make a profit. There is a price difference between if the city crews do it and if the regular crews do it. And we added in a cost, a capital cost in this that covers really the price. If we put a new water main in and we had to tap that water main, that's a cost of approximately the cost of doing that tap. So that would be like the capital charge of what it would cost to do a tap if we had to replace that main to put in that new service. All the residents that have been there before have been paying for that water main over the years, and so that cost we thought was justified and consistent with several other communities.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good that we go back and look at our fee schedule, and I know when things get shifted around, it can be problematic, but I mean, the whole basis of it is fairness, right? Fairness to, you know, everybody that's, you know, to the people that are doing it, that it's the cost, and fairness to everybody else that has been inadvertently subsidizing it over the years. And so, you know, when we identify things, we fix them and make it right for everybody. And for some, the price is going up, but not really. It's actually the discount is going away. So, okay, yeah, good. Thank you, Mr. Yu.
Thank you.
And this is a receive and file. Does anyone want to make a motion to receive and file these rate schedules? Oh, Commissioner Teasum?
I so move.
So moved. Second by Commissioner Herzog. Discussion. With none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes.
Thank you.
All right. Strategic planning update, not Mr. Yee. Ms. Barkman.
My apologies while we do the staff shuffle side in the back. What I have for you this evening is a little bit of a two-parter on our strategic plan. So as you, many of you recall, we've had a strategic plan in place in the past. It expired last year, and I've provided you with a copy of that plan as well as sort of a final update of what we've accomplished. I will note that in the spreadsheet with all of the tasks and items, we noted many things as accomplished or completed, but many things are an ongoing process. We're never going to stop planting trees. I don't think you all will allow that. We're never going to stop trying to be more accessible. There's a lot of things in there that are an ongoing nature and process. But for the purposes of the plan, we did complete a substantial work on that, and so we did mark those as complete. The other piece of this is to introduce our new strategic planning process. So back in January, we did an RFP for this. We had a staff review. You guys got a chance to see the proposal. And this evening before us, we have Patrick Ibarra, who is here as our consultant this evening. Tonight's conversation is not creating the strategic plan. It's to help lay the foundation as we approach a longer session and meeting to help develop that. So I'll turn it over to you and go from there.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Commission. I'm Patrick Ibarra with the Mejorando Group, and I'm going to take just a few minutes of your time tonight to provide you an overview of the process, answer any questions you might have. In front of you, you have the staff report outlining as Susan shared with you, the background. I want to talk with you a little bit about the purpose of strategic planning. Sometimes it gets misconstrued. So these are some principles that I think I have found to be most effective in local governments. And our entire consulting practice focuses on local governments nationwide, so that's our bread and butter. But some things to think about for strategic planning. A budget is an allocation of resources. A strategic planning is really about the future of the community. So we want to make sure that this strategic plan is not just another version of doing the budget. I want you to keep that in mind. I'm also going to give you a little homework between now and when we get together. The other thing about strategic planning is we know sometimes in local government it tends to be reactive. What we're going to try to do in this process is trying to help you have a duality, not a dichotomy, balancing between being proactive and being responsive. There are some things that are nipping at your heels that you have to do right now. At the same time, there are items that you're trying to peer into the future a little bit. My role in this process, I'm not the author of the update. I'm a flashlight and a mirror. I'm trying to guide you through that process, to help you pause and reflect, to examine, to sharpen your critical thinking and your creative problem solving. Because the best days for this community are in front of it. They're just not a guarantee. So when you think about Royal Oak, there's a lot of things going on. Static, it's not. So what got you here may not get you there. It's highly dynamic. Think about the demographics. Are you getting younger or older as a community? What's trending? That's empirical data. When you start to look at the residents, and I would encourage you to think of your residents as demographics. When you start to look at them as demographics, it starts to influence how you make public policy. You know that very well. Tonight was evident of that. I watched the whole meeting in the conference room. So a mix of people, different points of view. You love their passion. You love their commitment. At the same time, what's important to one demographic may not be to the other. And it's not about backing winners and losers, but it's trying to find out what are the real key priorities. Government can do just about anything, but it can't do everything. And that's usually the challenge. Editing will be the hardest part in the strategic planning process. Something I'm going to encourage you to do as we go through this, in order to be a good strategic plan, you have to do good strategic thinking. So something I'm going to share with you between now and when we get together in October, we'll talk about that a little bit, is I'm going to share with you some sample strategic plans from other communities throughout the country. Just so you, not to cut and paste or to plug and play, but just to say, look how they're addressing similar issues. Because what's happening in Royal Oak is not so distinctive as though other communities aren't addressing it, whatever it might be. I'm not saying you should just cut and paste, but I think it helps you as policymakers to learn how jurisdictions across the country are addressing issues, whether it's about downtown redevelopment, the role of housing, land use, amenities, whatever it might be, but to sample points of view, including outside the state, about how other communities are addressing that, just as a little point of information. When you think about what you're focused on as an organization, and I spent 15 years in city management before I started my firm almost 25 years ago, and mejorando Spanish means getting better all the time. When you think about what the majority of your budget is focused on, about 90% of that is to maintain core services, keeping services at the acceptable level as they're right now. Do residents of this community have high expectations? Do you have high expectations? It's a great place to be when people have high expectations. Maintaining that, though, in the face of turnover, in the face of challenges, in the face of budget, fiscal challenges, it's not easy to do. So something I'm going to try to at least shed light on this process is oftentimes a strategic plan is not a substitute for core services, it's a supplement. Because about 90% of staff time is devoted just to keep those things going that sometimes are not always conscious, people are conscious of. So as we get into this process, I'm going to really try to remind you of that, sharpen your your distinction between core services and discretionaries, because there are some things that you have an obligation to provide, and then there are others that are discretionary. The challenge is over time, sometimes those discretionary services become core services, or at least in the minds of the public. So those are just some principles I wanted to share with you a little bit about the approach that we're going to take. I would refer to you to the staff memo that you have in front of you, that what we're going to be doing is tonight what I want to try to do, and I know it's late in the hour and you've had a long meeting, is I don't want to go over the entire process, but I want to give you just some snippets and answer any questions. I do want to try to review the 7 strategic goals that you have, just to see if there's an appetite to make changes. We're not going to wordsmith anything tonight, I promise you, but I do want to touch on those. I also want to share with you that through the city manager's office, I'll be scheduling one-on-one calls with each of you. And the homework I'm going to ask you to do is to review the strategic plan. And when I talk with you sometime in probably late August or early September, I'd like to find out from you, what about that strategic plan do you think needs to be changed? What's happening in the community that you think the strategic plan needs to address? So I'm going to speak with you individually, and then I'll summarize that and share it with the city manager as we put the agenda together for the session we're going to have in October. Because I want to make sure that the time we have on our phone calls is productive for you. This is a very commission-centric conversation. This is not a staff-driven, definitely not a consultant-driven process. So we'll make a lot of spaghetti at the session, throw a lot of things up on the wall, and then we'll do surgery. So my role is to get you going from what, so what, to now what. Again, that editing is the hardest part. And when you look at the current strategic plan, it's really not calibrated around priorities. There's a list of priorities. And if everything's a priority, then what's a priority? And the messaging that you have, you think that's always the challenge. And execution is the strategy. And I would offer to you that less is more. It's not about having 40 new initiatives that have great merit and that you're excited about and you want to implement. It's really trying to make sure that the strategic goals and objectives that you adopt are meaningful and impactful, and they're difference makers. And there's a consensus among all of you that you see that it's going to make a true difference in the quality of life. So one of the areas that we're going to explore in that session is, what is your role? What is your role as a community builder? Government tends to get pulled into a lot of different things, and I would offer to you, you're always in the car to address community issues. You're just not always driving the car. Sometimes you're in the passenger seat. Sometimes you're in the back seat. It's the role of nonprofits, the role of private sector. Sometimes you're a convener, you're a catalyst, you're an architect. Sometimes you're a provider. You have capacity limits as well. So those are just some thoughts I wanted to share with you tonight, late hour, about strategic planning and what we're going to be doing going forward. I would direct your attention to those existing 7 strategic goals, and I know there's been turnover among the commission. Some people were not in office when these were adopted, so I don't want to make the assumption we're going to change all of these, but I also don't want to make the assumption that these all stay in place. So I'm just going to walk through these, and if there's a reaction that you have, share with me. We're not trying to change it tonight, but I just want to try to get a flavor from you. And these are in no priority order, the 7 strategic goals that were adopted in 2022. Welcoming, engaged, and livable community. You're in the business of doing that all the time. And environmental leadership. One of those areas that's definitely emerged in the last several years, your role as an environmental leader, what you want to do about that, policy, programs, practices. Efficient and effective services. You are a service-centric organization. I would even go so far, keeping in mind, this was mentioned earlier tonight, I can't recall who mentioned it, but government is both an advocate and a regulator. Some of your employees see people on their worst day. Some of your employees have to tell the public no. It's hard to find any sort of business in any industry where there's such a broad portfolio of the business that you're in. But efficient services, kind of your bread and butter, what you're trying to accomplish and how you're trying to go about doing that. Reliable infrastructure. What's interesting about infrastructure, it's evolving. It's not just physical infrastructure. More and more communities are also looking at social infrastructure. Kind of a fascinating conversation we're having across the country about social infrastructure. Of course, it's about, bridges. I think tonight's theme was bridges and roads. I mean, that's kind of the bread and butter, the kind of the heart and soul of a community. At the same time, what other aspects of infrastructure do you think this public is looking at to try to help it build a better quality of life? A safe, healthy, and just city. Obviously, you have a statutory obligation in those realms. Public safety. A vibrant local economy. One of the areas that most local governments are trying to figure out, what is their role about economic development? You're not a landowner, you're not an investor, you're not an operator. What's your role? How strategic do you want to be about economic development? What are you trying to incentivize for retail, commercial, industrial development, whatever it might be, but how aggressive do you want to be? Because often you don't hold a lot of the variables, but you can be an influential partner in those realms. And then long-term fiscal health. Again, you have fiduciary obligation to the public, what you're trying to do to be good stewards of public tax dollars. Something I would ask you to think about, oftentimes it gets bandied about in local government, the ROI, the return on investment. Most things, if you pencil them out in the public sector, you wouldn't do them because there's no profit, obviously was mentioned. But I want you to think about the ROE. What's the return on experience? How do people feel about living here? How do businesses feel about operating here? I think that's a good backdrop as we look at the strategic plan, how you're trying to strengthen that return on experience. I hope that resonates with you as you think about, because I would contend that government is an experience provider, and we live in an experience-based economy today. You ask people what they think, they tell you how they feel. So I want to kind of delve into that as we do the strategic planning. Thoughts about those? I know you've covered a lot of ground tonight, but any initial reactions to those strategic goals? We're not trying to decide tonight. We're not voting tonight, just trying to get a flavor. You think they're still good? Something to start from? Something to work from? Any major changes you see on the horizon? We don't want to wordsmith them. Any initial reactions?
We wrote them, we know them. Probably not a major reconstruction of the strategic framework.
Right.
I think we want to take a look at some of the work Ms. Barkman did, like what have we achieved?
Right.
How well did we achieve it? There's some contemporary issues and experiences we've had since putting the strategic plan in, specifically around housing. What that means in terms of our master use plan. So we've had some additional things we've been working on. Sorry. Someone must have found Commissioner Colo's stash. I'm just kidding. The sirens are going off. So I think that, there probably are some topics we need to figure out how to incorporate. I don't think we're going to go through the process of rewriting it because this was a values-based plan. How we look at it, maybe how we frame it could, open to ideas. But I think overall, there's probably going to be a little bit more tweaking than there is going to be rewriting.
Okay.
I think there's some things on the minds of everybody here. We have some new commissioners as well that should put their fingerprint on the strategic plan. I think for myself, Commissioner Colo, Commissioner Hunt, we've been around for a while.
Right.
So I think for me, what the most important thing out of this is, okay, we have a plan, it's worked, it's been somewhat of a guiding document for everything that we do, but we have new faces, new viewpoints. We want to make sure that those folks have their input through the people that elected them into this plan.
And I would ask you to think about, because change is the backdrop of this, that there's 3 degrees of change: refresh, reset, and reimagine. And based on what you shared, what I interpreted in conversations I've had with staff, it seems as though this is not a refresh, a drive-through. At the same time, it's not a reimagine. We're not starting from scratch, turning everything over, but somehow a bit of a reset. So you're going to scrub some of this, maybe make some substantive changes to it. We don't know that yet, but it's not just a cursory look at it. Some area that I'd like to see if you're interested in doing at that session in October, because what I saw is absent in the strategic plan is a vision and a mission. So trying to pursue those strategic goals, my question is, to what end? What are you trying to accomplish? And beyond the vision being poetry and a destination you never realize, it also gives you a filter by which you're deciding what are the strategic goals trying to help you accomplish. And I don't think we're going to have time in that time that we have allotted to craft a vision, but I think it would be beneficial to at least sketch one out. Because there's commonality among all of you that you can help set the table about how this strategic plan, what it's trying to do. So we can talk about that further, vision and mission and values. I know you want to get in there and push up your sleeves and get to the goals. We definitely will have time for that. The question, though, is once it's adopted, what are you trying to accomplish? And I think that vision starts to be kind of emblematic of tying everything together. And again, not for the sake of staring at your navel or off in outer space. I'm all about practical execution. I just find that the vision starts to set the table.
Yeah, we do have a vision and mission statement that kind of went before the strategic plan here. I don't know if we should dust that off as well.
It could be an opportunity to just take a look at it, see where we're all feeling, and just think about how they integrate together.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that was the basis for a lot of this.
Right.
But again, you got to make sure, you got to check the transmission, make sure the gears are working together. Right. And the master use plan, I think, is another, so we have a document here that's a strategy, right?
Right.
But we're always doing things every month, every week, every day that, we learn and we identify and navigate, and we don't always go back and redocument the strategic plan, right? What did Mike Tyson say? You always got a plan when you go into the ring until you get punched in the face.
Right.
We don't have too many of those. We haven't been punched in the face too many times, but we've had some pretty cool things we've worked on as a result of this plan that could help clarify it a little bit more. We talked about mobility tonight. That'd probably be an area that we want to focus on in terms of how do we, it's incorporated in here, but how do we call it out a little bit differently so it's clear for folks to understand how we're getting people to where they need to be. We've had some things related to the county in terms of transit, flex bus, EV charging infrastructure, things of that nature that, probably need to take a look at in the lens of our strategic plan. What is our role? How do we double down? How do we enhance? How do we fill in the gaps? Things of that nature. So there's some things that we've done over the last years tied back to our vision and mission strategic plan. We've done strategic plans over the years. They just, we update them, refresh them, and, we get better at it. So I think we'll have, the fundamental values of how we've been governing, the fundamental values that establish this plan, I don't see changing because, they're community values and they're the values that we know that our residents want us to govern with. But how we word things and make things easier for staff to not have to bring everything to us, but can say, oh, I know what they want, probably some updates there.
And you bring up a really good point. It came up when I met with department directors today to obtain their input. Like all local governments, there's no shortage of planning devices, whether it's a land use plan, the climate action plan, comprehensive plan. So one of the opportunities I think you have during this update is to figure out how to integrate those.
Yep.
Without just replicating those, but to give sometimes a political endorsement in your strategic plan that you're going to implement the recommendations as identified in those different plans. So I would have talked with Tom and Susan about how do we not overwhelm you with that session, going through all those plans. I don't think we have time to do that, but I think we have to reference those somewhere in those discussions so they receive the proper opportunity for a discussion and an endorsement. Because I think that's really where staff values this, is that it's synchronized. It's not you're doing one plan in that direction and another plan doing in that direction. I'm not saying you do that intentionally, but sometimes that just happens because things are adopted at different times, or funding cycles, or grant programs, or all those other, but we're going to try to assimilate, if you will, and synthesize all that. But not overwhelm.
And I think
all
this
you.
plan actually, like the example you gave, master use plan, this informed the master use plan.
Right.
And I think it's like a big, probably nobody knows this, but like, you guys know what hydromatic transmissions are? Okay, so never mind. But for those that do, you know, we have all these pieces that got to come together, work in harmony to get, you know, the best output. So, yeah, I think we're planned October 1st and October 2nd.
Right.
And we do
have a resolution to add those dates to the
Yes.
schedule as part of this agenda item.
Oh, yeah, that's the recommendation, is the first and the second. And I think you're right, we have to do a little bit of homework. I think it's good for all of us to reread the plan. It's not a hard read. And then come with your best ideas.
Well, and I'm going to
especially
ask
the
you
newer
to,
ones.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I'm going to ask you to, as I work through the city manager's office, to schedule calls with all of you, so we'll try to do it in late August, early September, to ask you to, if you have time, to read that plan prior to our call, so our call is really focused on that current strategic plan. Summer is not fluent with it as other people, but I think that'll be a good centerpiece for our conversation. We're not going to try to redo it in our phone call, but I think that'll create a more substantive conversation. And absolutely, I think this process, doing it in person on the first and second, will be really valuable.
And what works well with the strategic plan of the strategic plan is where we have things that are common. We can tackle those and get those done first. And then the things where I'm on an island, I'm sure my colleagues would be like, yeah, don't worry about those.
And remember, the key here is to try to have this adopted by the fall, so you can, as you go into next year and budget discussion. So that's why we're trying to maintain the momentum and not push those dates out to convene too far into the future, because then we run into holiday, all the other things that interfere with people's calendars. That's why we looked at October 1st and 2nd. So I just wanted to give you an overview. I know you have a resolution. You'll be getting contacted by the city manager's office to schedule a phone call with me, and I look forward to talking with you and being your partner.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gantino?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the October 1st and 2nd dates came up, I guess I wanted to speak up a little bit, because I certainly understand the value of the strategic plan. I am a new commissioner. I think I can bring value to a conversation. There was very little communication that went out regarding those scheduled dates. I cannot make those October 1st and 2nd dates. I know it's difficult to balance everyone's schedules. I'm certainly not suggesting that this schedule revolves around mine. But if there's the opportunity to look at some alternative dates, I would certainly like to request that, because I definitely would like to be present for the workshop. Understanding that I still will have the opportunity to get the one-on-one phone call with you, I think being in person for the workshop is certainly something that I would like to be able to do, if possible. So at least wanted to raise that. The October 1st and 2nd dates for me, I will not be able to attend.
Okay.
Mr. Cheatham?
I just had a couple of questions. So the last one was a 3-year strategic plan. Are we thinking about the same time frame for the strategic planning session as well, looking at 3 years?
I would say so. I think that's a reasonable amount of time. Further out in the future you go, the more uncertainty enters into the picture. So most cities do 2 to 3 year plans.
Okay. And then my other question, this came up at public comment this evening about community engagement. Can you speak to any community engagement that you have built into this plan, or how you usually have any community engagement for strategic plans?
Initially in the RFP, that wasn't identified as one of the techniques, was public outreach. Oftentimes, so we didn't respond. We didn't offer any up since it wasn't scoped in the RFP. Sometimes we do community outreach. It's usually what we call community conversations, where we have live meetings with people. We do some online postings, gather feedback in person and virtually. So that's really up to the to the commission if they want to do any of that and how we factor that into the time frame. That's doable, but it was not included in the RFP, so we didn't respond with different strategies. Sure. Any other questions for me?
I think we're good.
Okay, all right,
Mayor,
thank you.
if I may, just to speak a little bit more to Commissioner Cheesham's question about, the timeline of this plan. I would hope and encourage that we are looking at an annual basis to kind of at least talk a little bit more about the plan, if that's maybe a half day or something like that, to revisit, update. I think that's one of the challenges that the last plan had, was as things became dated or we moved away from certain goals that like we were going to use a vendor that we're no longer going to use, there wasn't a great way to kind of shift to the thing that we were doing and add that in effectively. So I would encourage us that maybe in the next fall, we're also looking at that kind of refresh check-in point on it too, and make that an annual part of the process.
Good idea. Okay. Well, we have a resolution here. Commissioner Gantina also said that he's got a poker tournament in Maui that he has to go to on October 1st and 2nd. High stakes. Kidding, by the way, kidding. I don't know where he's going to be.
We'll take a look at other dates. I think the reality is there's a lot of people sitting up here, there's staff members, the consultant, trying to figure that out. We may end up asking you when you're not available, because I think those are going to be some crucial times to determine if we can change these dates or not. So
It's hard.
yeah.
I had to miss a day of the last strategic planning, but I did make sure that I was able to get my input in there. It wasn't ideal, but
We're going to try and engage you whether you're at that schedule or not.
Sure, I was just saying, if it proves to be moving heaven and earth to change those dates because it works for everybody else, then that's what it must be.
Thank you.
For that reason, I would recommend modifying the motion if there is one to those specific dates or as otherwise identified by staff.
okay, yeah, perfect.
I appreciate it.
Buying the bagels.
All kinds of green trees.
Oh, man. Commissioner Teason.
All right, so I'll approve the strategic planning work sessions to occur on October 1st, 2026, starting at 5:30, and October 2nd, 2026, starting at 8:30 a.m., or any other date as designated by staff. Full stop. I'm tired.
Great motion. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Bastian. Discussion on this motion. All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, before we adjourn, did we want to have a discussion about another scheduling matter?
There was some suggestion from staff that the commission consider setting a special meeting to possibly consider the items that were scheduled for the closed session today that did not happen. So considering this is an open meeting and this is the opportunity for the commission to deliberate, if you feel it's appropriate to deliberate a date for a special meeting.
We had suggested Wednesday or Thursday, early morning, if that's possible, to get together. As early as 7:30 if the commissioners are so inclined.
Is that Wednesday the 12th and Thursday the 13th?
That's correct.
I can't do Thursday. I can do Wednesday. Oh.
I would be available Thursday.
Because we have conflicts next week too. So. That or it gets kicked to the 24th. There's some critical issues in terms of timing coming up. To wait that long.
So for when?
And that's on us. We missed the posting, correct posting.
So how early is too early? Because I hear 7:30 and I'm like, oh man. Sometimes I'm on my 5th cup of coffee by 7:30.
Oh,
I'm
we
sharp
If you
at
guys,
7:30.
if you guys want to do 0600 hours or anything like that, I'm in. You're good on either day. Commissioner Bastian, is Wednesday out of the question for you totally?
Wednesday is out of the question at the early morning. If it were later in the day, that would be fine.
What if it was real, like, super late at night Tuesday, like 4 a.m., 5 a.m.?
I'm there.
Okay.
I'm all there.
Just got to reframe it.
If we did 0600 on Wednesday, I could be available.
Okay.
bring your
I've
pillows.
seen Becca at the Y at 6. It's not a great time for her.
Oh, that's mean.
No.
I'm awake, but I like to be sitting at home in PJs drinking coffee at 6 a.m. But and just, I know on the 24th, which was another time that I can attend our 7:30 meeting, but I knew that if we had to close that day, that I would probably not be able to make it because of a work obligation. So for me, the Wednesday, Thursday works well, but yeah, whatever time, I can do 6.
Commissioner Hunt, you're out.
I can do 6 o'clock, I just have a hard stop at 7.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, it'll be fun. Get some espressos made. It'll be good.
200 PJs?
Yeah. It's pajama day. You can come to City Hall in your pajamas.
PJs plus a blazer.
It's a waist-up meeting. We're all fine.
6 Wednesday?
6 Wednesday. I know you guys are probably looking at us like, oh.
No, I'm good with that.
After this and planning tomorrow and ZBA on Thursday. This
Oh
is
man, I forgot about
fantastic.
planning tomorrow too. Well,
I had to tell him.
all right. Well, you know what? If we can get everybody there at 6, it's painful. It's not great. Oh, you can't be there at 6? Okay. I mean, I'll call it all off if Miss Alice can't be there. Okay. So everybody's good with 6? On Wednesday?
Thank you.
Okay. So, do we need that in a motion? Or can you just, the mayor requests a closed session at 6 a.m. on Wednesday. Is that a?
All we would need to do is notice it by noon tomorrow, exactly.
Perfect. 18 hours.
That's correct, noon.
And, and to our folks watching, this is not a sneaky attempt to avoid, there was a little snafu with a website posting. We were supposed to have our normal closed session and it didn't happen, no fault of anyone, but things happen. And so there is important business at those closed sessions. So we want to get it done as soon as possible. And 6 a.m. is the time that, most of us have day jobs. That seems to work. So your commissioners are getting up early at, the crack of dawn to serve you. So there's nothing, there's no underlying conspiracies happening. So what?
Motion to resign.
Motion to resign. I think everyone's going to vote no on that. All right, so no vote, we're good?
We're good.
All right, perfect. So that brings us to the last item 14, which I know is Commissioner Herzog's favorite motion to make.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion by Commissioner Herzog. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Gantina. Is there any discussion on this motion? Gosh, with none, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Adjourned.